Chapter 1024. Am I going to die here again today? Jiufeng thought to herself in despair as she struggled to fend off the attacks of the 10 sword ladies. At that moment, Xingtian's voice transmission suddenly rang in her ears. Jiufeng, the 12 of us are done for today. However, we can't all die here. You're the fastest among us. We'll do our best to help you escape. Got it? Jiufeng did not reject or decline politely. Instead, she agreed right away. The 12 great shamans never played around with politeness. They only pursued the best outcome. Jiufeng's speed was the fastest among the 12 great shamans. Jiufeng was the only one who could escape from the humans' core defense zone all the way back to the Wu people's tribe. Xingtian, who was surrounded and beaten up, suddenly attacked one of the sword ladies with all his might, as if he had gone mad. He completely disregarded his own defense and launched a fierce attack at one of the sword ladies. Although Guhan had specially arranged for the strongest swordbearers, such as the Baihu Guardian and the Black Tortoise Guardian, to surround and attack Xingtian, these sword ladies were unable to fend off Xingtian's fearless attacks even though they were experts among the famous swords. Around 30% of their shield's energy was depleted, and in the end, they were left with less than 10%, which was in danger of collapsing. Of course, Xingtian also paid a bloody price for this. There were dozens of wounds on his body that were so deep that his bones could be seen. It could be seen that after this round of explosive attacks, Xingtian would definitely be at the end of his rope. He would then be left with only death. However, Xingtian had achieved his goal. The sword lady's call had successfully attracted Guhan over to help the sword lady fend off Xingtian's counterattack. When Guhan attacked, Hu Yi, who was on the other side, also attacked. His body suddenly turned into a crimson arrow. This was Hu Yi's ultimate move. He turned his body into an arrow and became one with it. It could produce an unparalleled breakthrough ability. However, once this move was used, Hu Yi's body would burst into raging flames. In the end, he would burn himself to death. It was a move that would definitely kill him after using it. At the same time, the arrow also possessed unparalleled offensive power. Even the protectors of the extreme yin and extreme yang would die to this move if they were not careful. In the hundreds of years of history, Hu Yi had used this last move to kill many powerful sword ladies before he died. Therefore, when they saw Hu Yi use this move, the surrounding sword ladies started to run for their lives. Anyway, Hu Yi would definitely die after using this move. There was no need for them to die with him. In the end, when these swordbearers scattered in all directions, they were surprised to find that Hu Yi's target was not them, but the 9 phoenix swordbearers who were in charge of besieging in another battle circle. Yi Fan, retreat. Yi Fan, who was ganging up on Jiufeng, suddenly heard Guhan's shout. As the sword master, Yi Fan naturally did not hesitate to fight on the front lines, instead of commanding his own sword mistress to fight like the other swordbearers. As a result, when Yi Fan heard Guhan's shout, he reacted very quickly and instinctively took a step back. At this critical moment, a scarlet light flashed past Yi Fan's previous position. If not for Guhan's timely warning, Yi Fan would have become a pile of cooked meat by now. Thank you, Guhan. Before Yi Fan could finish thanking Guhan, a pair of claws suddenly grabbed his neck. It was Jiufeng's claws. Although Yi Fan was lucky to avoid Hu Yi's fatal strike, he also gave Jiufeng a chance to escape. Jiufeng took this opportunity to grab Yi Fan. Ah! Ah! Yi Fan, who was choked by Jiufeng's claws, screamed in pain. At the same time, Jiufeng, who was flying in the air, shamelessly used Yi Fan's body as a shield. This made the other sword mistresses who were trying to attack Jiufeng afraid. They were afraid that their attacks would hurt poor Yi Fan. No one was willing to stab their sword into their comrade's body. Therefore, the sword mistresses could only form a loose circle and surround Jiufeng. No one was willing to attack. They just kept entangling with Jiufeng. However, this also gave Jiufeng space to fight and break out of the encirclement. Jiufeng charged left and right with Yi Fan, destroying countless buildings. They killed their way from the Taiyin garrison to the Baihu garrison mansion. At this time, Ji Yuhan and the other sword-bearers had finally completed their encirclement on Xingtian. The strongest shaman had finally died helplessly at the hands of a nameless sword-bearer. However, what surprised Ji Han was that according to the sword-bearers who had ganged up on Chang'e, when Chang'e was about to die, she suddenly opened a void gate and escaped into the void alone. This surprised Gu Han. The Ju Tian star formation had blocked the ability to open a void gate, and the Xingtian, the only one who had the ability to open a void gate, had died in the hands of the sword mistresses. How did Chang'e open a void gate and escape? Who opened a void gate for her? Could it be that the real U-level Yuan Ku isn't Xingtian, but Chang'e? Gu Han suddenly realized that during the process of killing Xingtian, although Xingtian was far more powerful than the other senior Magi, Xingtian didn't use the power that a U-level Yuan Ku should have. He was still a top-tier meteor-level Yuan Ku, the same level as the other senior Magi. However, when Gu Han was eavesdropping on Xingtian, he clearly heard Xingtian admit to Ying Zheng that he had become a U-level Yuan Ku. What was going on? What was going on with this Chang'e? Well, Gu Han didn't have time to think about these things, because the sword mistresses who were killing Jiufeng in the Baihu garrison mansion suddenly reported to Gu Han that something bigger had happened. When Gu Han hurriedly rushed to the Baihu garrison mansion from the Taiyin garrison, he found out that not only was Yi Fan the sword mistress held hostage by Jiufeng, but there was also another person held hostage by Jiufeng. However, this person was lying in a medical pod at the moment, and this person was none other than Yao Guang, who was still poisoned and was being treated in the medical pod. Because he expected that the Taiyin garrison would become a fierce battlefield, Gu Han had moved Yao Guang's medical pod to the Baihu garrison mansion in advance. However, he didn't expect that Jiufeng would accidentally barge into the Baihu garrison mansion, and then luckily found Yao Guang's medical pod. Now, Yao Guang had also become Jiufeng's hostage. With Yi Fan as Jiufeng's hostage, Gu Han was already worried enough, and now there was Yao Guang. The situation couldn't get any worse. Let me go. I won't hurt them. When Jiufeng saw Gu Han appear in front of her, she immediately yelled at the top of her voice. Gu Han, don't worry about us. If we can kill all the great sorcerers today, then I, Yi Fan, will die a worthy death. Although his life was in Jiufeng's hands, Yi Fan still fearlessly begged Gu Han to kill Jiufeng. This moved all the sword-bearers present, and they secretly praised Yi Fan for being a real man. Shut up. Jiufeng unceremoniously scratched Yi Fan's body, leaving 5 deep bloody marks, and then continuously knocked on the glass cover of the medical pod with her claws. Human, you don't care about his life, but don't you care about this Yao Guang's life? Do it. Gu Han's expression turned cold, and he ordered the sword-bearers around him. However, unexpectedly, after Gu Han gave the order, none of the sword maidens controlled by the sword-bearers moved, and they all stood there silently. What's wrong? Gu Han asked sternly. Gu Han, you bastard, you're new here, and you don't care about Boss Yao Guang's life. We were all taken care of by Boss Yao Guang, and we care about Boss Yao Guang's life. One of the sword-bearers said loudly. That's right, we can't let Boss Yao Guang die here. Boss Yao Guang has to go back to the base city. Boss Yao Guang has told us many times that he loves his sister the most, and his biggest dream is to go back to the base city to see his sister, whom he hasn't seen for 3 years, and reunite with her. We can't let Boss Yao Guang die here, we have to send Boss Yao Guang back to see his sister. Another sword-bearer said, but he was sobbing as he spoke, clearly hoping that Yao Guang would be able to see his sister. That year, Mingyu. When Gu Han heard this, he couldn't help but think of a familiar face. That was the first girl he met in the game, and also a girl who had helped him a lot. Without Mingyue's help, he wouldn't have met Yao Guang, and he wouldn't have joined the betrayal of Altoria dungeon. Many things wouldn't have happened after that. He still owed Mingyu a favor. Although Mingyu had found her own love and stopped contacting Gu Han, this friendship was still remembered in Gu Han's heart. If Gu Han killed Jiufeng now, it would be equivalent to killing Yaro Guang, Mingyue's closest brother. Forget it. Gu Han let out a long sigh, then said to Jiufeng, if I let you go, how can you promise me that you won't hurt Yao Guang? The promise of us great shamans is the best guarantee. Jiufeng flapped her wings. You humans, go through your history. When have we great shamans ever lied, and when have we not fulfilled our promises? We Wu people mean what we say. If we say we won't kill him, we won't kill him. As long as you let me safely return to the Wu people's tribe, I'll send Yao Guang back to you tomorrow. As for this, take it as proof of our Wu people's credibility. Jiufeng looked at Yi Fan, who was under her claws, then kicked Yi Fan to Guhan's side. The rest of the sword bearers hurriedly helped Yi Fan up, applied medicine on him, and bandaged his wounds. However, Yi Fan was really pitiful. Although he was released safely, he was only released as proof of his credibility. In the eyes of both the Wu people and humans, Yi Fan was far less important than Yao Guang. Let her go. Guhan clenched his teeth and waved his hand. The team surrounding Jiufeng opened up a gap. Jiufeng grabbed Yao Guang's medical pod with her claws and fled in the direction of the Wu people's tribe. The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind it, finally drew an incomplete end to this battle. Chapter 1025. After Jiufeng escaped, the latest battle report came from the front line. The Wu people's army had fled once again. The front line of the Ju Tian Star battle formation was impregnable. This was another great piece of news. All the famed sword rank swordbearers could not help but cheer. Although there were some regrets in the end, and Jiufeng had escaped with Yao Guang, they had to admit that this was an unprecedented battle. 10 of the 12 great shamans had died in the Taiyin garrison, and the price they paid was nothing. This was a battle that brought them rich results without paying any price. None of the famed sword rank swordbearers who had participated in the battle had died, and none of their sword ladies had been broken. Other than using up some physical strength and experiencing a thrilling battle, they had not suffered any actual losses. Therefore, this was a battle that was destined to be remembered in the history of Shanhai Pass. There had never been such a shocking battle in the history of Shanhai Pass. When Jiufeng's figure completely disappeared at the end of the clouds, the famed sword rank swordbearers instantly burst into an earth-shattering cheer. They hugged their companions, hugged their sword ladies, and cheered to their heart's content, releasing the joy in their hearts. They spontaneously rushed to Guhan's side. Dozens of hands simultaneously threw Guhan into the sky, and then caught him. Although some unpleasant things had happened because of Yao Guang, Guhan's precise calculations and flawless battle results made all the famed sword rank swordbearers feel admiration for Guhan from the bottom of their hearts. In fact, when they had started to surround and attack the 12 great shamans, all of them had felt uneasy. This was because they knew that even if they managed to kill the 12 great shamans in the end, they would have to pay a bloody price. It was very likely that more than half of the famed sword rank swordbearers would die in this battle. However, at the same time, they also knew that they were not qualified to retreat. If they could kill all the senior Magi here, Shanhai Pass would definitely welcome a relatively long period of peace in the future. Therefore, everyone actually had the belief of sacrificing their lives for the sake of righteousness. However, they didn't expect Guhan's power to be so terrifying. He was so powerful that he could join any battle at any time and save every sword mistress who was in danger. Some of the young famed swordsmen might not know what this meant, but the more experienced swordbearers knew very well that if Guhan could ensure that no one died, then perhaps Guhan alone would be able to take care of all 12 great wizards. In that case, all the rewards and merits would belong to Guhan, and they, the famed swordsmen, would have nothing to do with them. The reason why Guhan dragged all of them along and tried his best to ensure that each of them could survive was so that he could give each of them the rewards. It would be very difficult to repay such a favor. In the end, Guhan listened to their wishes and let Jiufeng go in order to protect Yao Guang. The famed swordsman knew very well that this was against the rules of the famed swordsman. If this matter were to spread, the Shanhai Pass Administrative Committee would definitely punish Guhan. This was because to the Shanhai Pass Administrative Committee, exchanging the life of a famed sword rank swordbearer for the life of a great shaman was a very worthwhile thing to do. In reality, this matter was destined to spread, and the Shanhai Pass Administrative Committee was destined to know that Guhan had agreed to such a ridiculous thing. Perhaps Guhan would not be punished, but he might not get anything out of it. However, this was not Guhan's decision. Instead, they had forced Guhan to make this decision. It was equivalent to Guhan taking the blame for them. With such kindness added together, other than offering his own loyalty, there was nothing else he could do to repay Ji Han. Therefore, from the moment they tossed Guhan into the air, they had truly placed Guhan in the position of the Lunar Star Guardian. They had truly acknowledged Guhan's authority in the entire Taiyin garrison, instead of the lunar star guardian that Yaoguang had appointed. After a period of laughter, Guhan was finally put down by the famed swordsman. After Guhan was put down, he signaled everyone to be quiet, as he had something to say. Actually, I have two very important things to do. Hearing Guhan's words, all the sword-bearers immediately focused their attention on Guhan. They wanted to hear what the two important things that Guhan had mentioned were. Now, I have to punish someone, and at the same time, I have to praise someone and apologize to him. At this point, Guhan paused, then waved his hand into the distance. Leslie Dracula and Ku Rokin escorted Zhu Zijian over. Zhu Zijian was quite pitiful. Although he was saved by Wu people, when the battle started, Wu people could not even protect themselves. However, when the battle started, the sorcerer tribe could not even protect themselves. Of course, they could not care about the traitor, Zhu Zijian, and directly threw him into a corner of the Taiyin guard palace. If Guhan had not deliberately ordered people to keep Zhu Zijian in custody, it was likely that Zhu Zijian would have died in the aftermath of the battle between the Sword Lady and Wu people. After the battle ended, almost the entire Taiyin garrison had been razed to the ground. Even some of the sturdy boulders had been turned into powder. Only some dimensional alloys mixed with dimensional crystals had barely survived the battle, becoming witnesses of the Taiyin garrison. Seeing Zhu Zijian appear, all the sword-bearers immediately revealed looks of disdain. Some of the less cultured ones even spat thick phlegm at Zhu Zijian, expressing their disgust towards Zhu Zijian. All the sword-bearers were extremely shocked by Zhu Zijian. Since the Great Calamity, the number of traitors among human sword-bearers could be counted on one hand, and there had not been a single traitor in the past 100 years of the Shanhai Pass. Never had they thought that this traitor would actually appear by their side today. How could these sword-bearers not feel disgust towards Zhu Zijian? Some of them even raised their hands angrily, shouting that they should cut Zhu Zijian into 1,000 pieces right now to vent their hatred. I'm not a traitor. I really am not a traitor. I didn't send a wine cup to Yaoguang's people. Zhu Zijian felt like he was almost crippled. He kept on babbling nonsense, continuously explaining to others that he was not a traitor. I understand now. This must be the person that Lord Guhan wants to punish. Recalling Guhan's words, all the sword-bearers immediately reacted. It was obvious that Guhan wanted to punish this Zhu Zijian. Lord Guhan, I think there's no need to say anything. Just chop him into pieces and feed him to the dogs. No, feeding him to the dogs is already letting him off easy. I think it's better to chop his flesh into pieces and feed it to the Wu people. Since he's already one of the Wu people's people, he'll become one with the Wu people. One of the sword-bearers made an extremely vicious suggestion. Now, Zhu Zijian's expression changed drastically. He was so scared that his legs were trembling, and he had to rely on Ku Rokin's support to maintain his standing posture. No. Comrade Zhu Zijian isn't the person that I want to punish, but the comrade that I want to praise and apologize to. Unexpectedly, Guhan's words took a turn. Why is that? That's right, Lord Guhan, why are you praising a traitor and apologizing to him? Why do we have to apologize to him? Many of the sword-bearers expressed their confusion. Comrade Zhu Zijian is a good comrade. I've been framing Comrade Zhu Zijian since the beginning. Comrade Zhu Zijian isn't a traitor, but a sword-bearer who is loyal to the humans, just like everyone else. Guhan's words shocked everyone. They had just accepted the fact that Zhu Zijian was a traitor, but they did not expect Guhan to say that he was framing Zhu Zijian, and that Zhu Zijian was not a traitor. Among the crowd, Zhu Zijian was probably the most shocked. When he heard Guhan's words, he immediately turned around and stared at Guhan blankly. His mouth that had been trying to defend himself fell silent, and his eyes were filled with hot tears. Then what's with the video? We saw the video with our own eyes. One of the sword-bearers asked loudly, not understanding what was going on. One of the two videos is real. It's the video of Zhu Zijian handing his gift to Yaoguang. However, the other video of him unwrapping the gift wasn't done immediately after receiving it. I made a gift that was exactly the same as Zhu Zijian's gift yesterday, and the maidservants re-recorded it yesterday. The wine glass was naturally put into the gift box by me yesterday. Comrade Zhu Zijian's gift is still in the warehouse, and it hasn't been opened at all. How could Lord Yaoguang drink with his gift? Gu Han's explanation made everyone dumbfounded. The evidence was actually forged, and it was so blatantly forged. Wasn't this Gu Han a little too shameless? What about the highest level of artificial intelligence? Why would the highest level of artificial intelligence testify for you that this video is real? Another sword-bearer raised his question, and it immediately resonated with the other sword-bearers. That's right, the highest level of artificial intelligence wouldn't lie, but why did it swear that this video was real? Could it be that even the highest level of artificial intelligence couldn't guarantee its own impartiality? Actually, this is just a word game. Gu Han spread his hands. Everyone, think back to the question I asked the highest level of artificial intelligence. Your Excellency, the highest level of artificial intelligence, may I ask if the video I just played is real? There's no evidence of any forgery. Then the highest level of artificial intelligence replied, that's right. The two videos I just played are real, and there's no trace of forgery. I can guarantee it in the name of the highest level of artificial intelligence. Everyone will understand if you think about it carefully. I'm asking if this video is real, and if there's no forgery. I'm not asking if this video records the opening of Zhu Zijian's gift. In fact, this video of mine was recorded with an ordinary video recorder, and there's no trace of editing or Photoshop in it. Therefore, the highest level of artificial intelligence can answer me that these two videos are real, and there's no trace of forgery. F***CK. After listening to Gu Han's explanation, many sword-bearers felt like fools. They were completely fooled by Gu Han, and they couldn't even see through such a simple word game. It seemed like their intelligence was not on the same level as Gu Han's. However, at the same time, a new question popped up in everyone's mind. Why did Gu Han frame Zhu Zijian as a traitor? After successfully framing him, why did he publicly admit that he was framing him? Chapter 1026. I know everyone has a lot of questions, but before that, I want to express my apology to Zhu Zijian. Gu Han suddenly pulled out the Juzi sword in his hand, and then used his internal force to attach the sheathless Juzi sword to his back. He bent his knees and directly knelt in front of Zhu Zijian, and said sincerely, Comrade Zhu Zijian, I, Gu Han, have let you down. I am here to ask for your forgiveness with my sword on my back. It was said that asking for forgiveness with a sword on one's back was a tradition left over from ancient times. It was during the Warring States period, and there was a general of the state of Zhao named Han Xin who was about to lead the army of the state of Zhao to resist the attack of the state of Qin. In the end, a man named Lu Buwei stopped Han Xin and told him that in this battle, he could only defend and not attack. He absolutely could not take the initiative to attack, otherwise, he would definitely lose. However, Han Xin did not listen to Lu Buwei at all, and the result was just as Lu Buwei said. Han Xin took the initiative to attack in Changping, causing the Zhao army to suffer heavy losses. In the end, a total of 400,000 people died in the hands of the Qin army's commander, Zhong Yi. This was also known as the Battle of Changping in history. Later, Han Xin was lucky enough to escape, so he carried his sword on his back and knelt in front of Lu Buwei to ask for forgiveness, begging for Lu Buwei's forgiveness. This was also the origin of the sword on one's back. I. Faced with Gu Han's sudden sword on one's back, Zhu Zijian was at a loss for a moment. He could no longer control his feelings of grievance and actually began to cry. For a moment, the scene became extremely strange. One person was kneeling on the ground with a sword on his back, and the other was sitting there wailing. If it was someone who had just arrived here, they would probably be dumbfounded. They would not even know what was going on and could only watch it all with a dumbfounded expression. Why? Why do you want to frame me? Did I offend you in any way? After crying for a while, Zhu Zijian finally regained some of his rationality and asked the biggest question in his heart. He could not understand why Gu Han would frame him as a traitor when he had no enmity with this Gu Han. Because I want Wu people and the traitor to think that they are safe and that someone has taken the blame for them. That way, the traitor will reveal himself. I believe everyone hasn't forgotten that when I threw Comrade Zhu Zijian to the Wu people the Wu people didn't hurt Zhu Zijian. Instead, they protected Zhu Zijian and even admitted that Zhu Zijian was one of them. Wu people clearly knew that Zhu Zijian wasn't the traitor, but he deliberately admitted that he was, in order to cover up the real traitor. At this point, Gu Han let out a long sigh and said to Zhu Zijian, "I'm really sorry. In order not to arouse Wu people's suspicion, not only did I not tell you all of this in advance, but I also put you in danger. Please forgive me. Everyone, please listen to me. Because of me, Gu Han, Comrade Zhu Zijian has not only been wronged today, but also suffered great mental torture. Even if I die, I won't be able to repay Comrade Zhu Zijian. Although I know that this is very vulgar, and I can't truly repay Comrade Zhu Zijian for the torture he has suffered, I still have to make this decision. I want to transfer all the rewards from today's battle, including the hero coins and merit points, to Comrade Zhu Zijian. Without Comrade Zhu Zijian, I won't be able to find the real traitor hidden among us. These are Comrade Zhu Zijian's things that Comrade Zhu Zijian deserves." Clap, clap, clap. Once Gu Han's voice faded, all the sword-bearers burst into a wave of applause. What a great Comrade Gu Han! He did this for the sake of humankind, but in the end, he was the one who carried his sword and apologized. Among the 10 senior Magi who had been killed, at least 3 cooldowns had been made by Ji Yu Han. Such a great amount of rewards, Ji Yu Han had directly given it to someone else, without even blinking his eyes. What a great spirit! All the sword-bearers were moved by Gu Han's spirit, and couldn't help but applaud. "Comrade Zhu Zijian, I also apologize to you on behalf of Comrade Gu Han. Please forgive Comrade Gu Han." A sword-bearer didn't want to see Gu Han kneeling on the ground anymore, so he took the initiative to kneel down and said, "Yeah, count me in. Count me in too." When one person knelt down and apologized on behalf of Gu Han, more and more sword-bearers also knelt down for Gu Han. Once everyone started to kneel down, even those who didn't want to kneel down had to follow suit. Otherwise, how would they be able to maintain their dignity in the Taiyin garrison in the future? In the end, all the sword-bearers actually knelt down on behalf of Gu Han, and apologized on behalf of Gu Han. Facing such a situation, even the most vengeful person in the world had no other choice. "It's okay. It's good that we've talked it out. Since it's to find the real traitor, I don't mind being wronged like this." Zhu Zijian hurriedly helped Gu Han up. Then, everyone cheered and stood up at the same time. This showed that kneeling on the ground was indeed not a comfortable thing to do. Although Zhu Zijian had forgiven Gu Han, he was still a little unwilling. He stared into Gu Han's eyes and said, "It doesn't matter if I'm wronged or not. What's important is whether my grievances were in vain. Have you found the real traitor?" Of course. Gu Han grabbed Zhu Zijian's hand and stood up. He said excitedly, "Didn't I tell everyone just now? I have a person to beg for forgiveness, and at the same time, I have a person to punish. And the person to be punished is naturally the real traitor." Then, Gu Han suddenly turned around and faced all the sword-bearers. He shouted loudly, "You have the guts to be a traitor, but don't you have the guts to stand up for me? If you stand up for me now, I'll still treat you as a man." Silence. Everyone was silent. It was obvious that the traitor was not a good man. He was still hidden in the crowd, praying in his heart that Ji Yu Han was just trying to scare him, that he had not discovered who the real traitor was. "Since you don't want to come out, I'll invite you to come out." As soon as Gu Han's voice fell, the Juzi sword on his back suddenly shot out more than a dozen sword chiefs, rushing towards a certain direction in the crowd. The few sword-bearers who bore the brunt of the attack let out a strange cry and instinctively wanted to dodge the dozen sword chiefs. However, the speed of the sword chiefs was too fast. By the time they reacted, the sword chiefs were already close to them. Just when these sword-bearers thought that they were unlucky and would definitely be injured by the sword chiefs accurately passed through the gaps in the crowd and finally went deep into the crowd. "It's not me. It's not me." A voice in the crowd shouted and rushed out of the crowd. The dozen sword chiefs behind him instantly wrapped around the sword-bearer's leg like a snake, then quickly tied up his entire body and dragged him back to Gu Han's side. "It's actually him. How can it be him?" At this moment, everyone could clearly see the person Gu Han had captured. It turned out that this person was none other than Yi Fan, who had been captured by Zhou Feng as a hostage. No one had expected that the traitor Guhan had uncovered in the end would actually be this Yi Fan. It's not me. Don't wrongly accuse me. Yi Fan struggled with all his might. Is it not enough that you have framed Zhu Zijian? You also want to frame me? Then let me ask you a question. Why did Zhou escape to Baihu's guardian mansion in the end? Guhan asked. How would I know? How to escape is Zhou problem. What does it have to do with me? I'm just a hostage, Yi Fan said innocently. I wonder if everyone noticed the direction that Zhou escaped to. Guhan waved his hand and a map was directly projected from his personal terminal. Upon closer inspection, it was the map of the entire Taiyin garrison. This is the location of Taiyin garrison, this is the location of Baihu's guardian mansion, and this is the direction that Zhou escaped to from Baihu's guardian mansion. Guhan first pointed out 2 points on the map, then used a line to connect them. Finally, together with the defensive line that Zhou escaped to, they formed 2 vertical lines that were perpendicular to each other. As long as Zhou had a normal brain, she would never run in a vertical line when she was escaping. What she should have done was, of course, run in a straight line. But in the end, Zhou escaped here, to Baihu's guardian mansion where Yaoguang's medical warehouse was stored. Comrade Yi Fan, what do you think is the reason? Of course, a traitor tipped her off and told her that Sir Yaoguang was hiding here. Yi Fan snorted coldly. But what does this have to do with me? Are you saying that I was captured by the Wu people and told Zhou that I was the one who was captured? I didn't say that you told Zhou when you were captured. Why are you so sensitive? After hearing Guhan's words, Yi Fan's expression was as if there was a fishbone stuck in his throat. I'd like to ask everyone a question. How many of you know that I've hidden Sir Yaoguang's medical warehouse in Baihu's guardian mansion? Guhan suddenly asked the swordsman. The swordsmen looked at each other. They realized that they had no idea that Yaoguang's medical warehouse was hidden in Baihu's guardian mansion. They had always thought that Yaoguang's medical warehouse was hidden in Taiyin garrison. No one had ever told them that Yaoguang's medical warehouse had been moved. As far as I know, the only person in Taiyin garrison who knows that I've moved Sir Yaoguang's medical warehouse here is the Baihu's guardian mansion. Other than that, I've never told anyone that Yaoguang's medical warehouse is here. Guhan then fixed his sharp gaze on the Baihu's guardian among the crowd. Sir Baihu, have you ever told anyone that Yaoguang's medical warehouse has been moved to your place? Sir, only when Yi Fan came to my place for a drink last night did I lose control of my mouth and spill the beans. Other than that, I guarantee that I haven't told anyone about Sir Yaoguang, the Baihu's guardian said firmly. Chapter 10:27. Then let me ask you again. Did you take the initiative to drink with Yi Fan, or did Yi Fan take the initiative to drink with you? Do you and Yi Fan drink together often? Guhan quickly asked 2 more questions. Everyone in the Taiyin garrison knows that I, Baihu, like to drink. I like to take the initiative to drink with everyone, and everyone likes to take the initiative to drink with me. However, last night, I received a warning from Sir to be on guard, so I didn't have the mood to drink. However, Yi Fan took the initiative to look for me. I couldn't resist drinking with him, so I drank too much with him. I didn't expect to harm Sir Yaoguang in the end. At this point, Baihu's eyes suddenly became wet. Obviously, he had realized that the news about Yaoguang was leaked from his mouth. If he hadn't drunk that night, perhaps Yaoguang wouldn't have been captured by Zhou. Baihu rubbed his eyes and continued, although my relationship with Yi Fan isn't very good, it's normal for us to drink. We drink once or twice a month. So, I didn't find it strange at that time, so I drank a few more cups with Yi Fan. All right. Guhan waved his hand and gestured for Baihu to step back. He then looked at Yi Fan again. How are you going to explain this time? Yes, I did look for Baihu to drink, but I was also drunk at that time. I don't remember what Baihu said at all, and I don't remember him telling me that Sir Yaoguang's medical pod has been transferred to him. Yi Fan denied everything. Is that so? Guhan sneered. The map projected in the air suddenly changed into a video of a battle. It was the video of the battle when the swordsmen surrounded the 12 great sorcerers. Everyone, pay attention to this. Ji Yu Han skipped the recording to the end of the battle, where Hu Yi and his arrows had become one as they broke through the 9 phoenixes' encirclement. Then, Ji Yuhan slowed down the recording by 100 times, playing every scene of the battle frame by frame. This way, even though Hu Yi was as fast as lightning when he became one with the arrow, all the sword wielders could see it clearly. Everyone, look over here. Guhan pointed to a few frames in the video. These images showed Hu Yi rushing to Yi Fan's side, preparing to use Yi Fan as a breakthrough point. From these images, everyone could clearly see that when the arrow that Hu Yi had transformed into was about to pierce into Yi Fan's body, the entire arrow suddenly made an outward turn, actively avoiding Yi Fan's body, and then broke into the battlefield. In other words, just now, Hu Yi had intentionally spared Yi Fan's life. Otherwise, Yi Fan would have been directly pierced by the arrow and died on the spot. Comrade Yi Fan and Grand Sorcerer Hu Yi seemed to have a good relationship. Grand Sorcerer Hu Yi actually took the initiative to let you go. If it was me, I would definitely stab you without hesitation. As for the hostages, there are plenty of them. There is no need for me to spare your life, right? Ji Yuhan's words caused everyone to nod in agreement. If what Baihu said just now could be explained, then Hu Yi's action could not be explained. The human had already killed 10 of the 12 Grand Sorcerers, and the remaining Grand Sorcerers must have a deep-seated hatred for them. They would never let go of an opportunity to kill the human being. There was absolutely no reason for Hu Yi to let Yi Fan go. Yi Fan tried hard to explain, but Guhan did not give him a chance to explain at all. He directly threw out another recording in front of everyone. Actually, I made a small trick. When I was fighting with Jiufeng, I left a listening device on her. Although this listening device can't be used too far away due to the influence of the Ju Tian Star battle formation, it can still be used at a distance of a few kilometers. Now, let's listen to what Jiufeng and our Yi Fan said. As soon as Guhan's voice fell, the recording began to play automatically. First, there was a noisy sound of explosions, Wu people's howls, and humans' shouts. Obviously, this was the sound of the beginning of the battle. At some point, there was a sudden whistling sound in the recording. Immediately, a swordsman who participated in the siege of Jiufeng said, "This is the sound made by Hu Yi when he became one with the sword. I will never forget this kind of whistling sound for the rest of my life. It's really terrifying." The recording continued. After a while of humans yelling and fighting, the recording gradually became clear. The noisy background noise was no longer there, and only the sound of the wind caused by the flapping of wings could be heard. Obviously, at this time, Jiufeng had escaped from the Taiyin garrison and was on the way to escape. After waiting for another 5 or 6 seconds, Jiufeng could suddenly be clearly heard asking, "Where is Yaoguang locked up now?" "In the Baihu garrison residence." As expected, Yi Fan's voice appeared. He then added, "Madam Jiufeng, please loosen your claws a little. You almost strangled me to death just now." I didn't expect Yi Fan to be such a person. Seems like it's really Yi Fan's doing. He's really despicable. After the recording ended, everyone said angrily, "No, this recording is fake." Just like how he forged the video of Zhu Zijian, this recording is definitely fake. Yi Fan tried his best to explain. After what happened to Zhu Zijian, everyone began to suspect that this recording might really be fake by Guhan. Let's not talk about whether I have the ability to fabricate a real recording in less than 10 minutes. Let's just assume that I have the ability to fabricate a recording. Yi Fan, you can verify with the highest level artificial intelligence and ask her if this recording is fake or not. By the way, if you're afraid that I'm playing word games with you, then you can go and ask yourself. You can try to verify it from every angle and meaning. I have no objections. Go ahead and ask. Ji Yuhan said calmly. It seemed that this time, the recording was real. Yi Fan suddenly began to pant heavily like a heart patient having a heart attack. He only calmed down after a while, and his face regained its calmness. "I refuse to answer any of your questions. You can lock me up in jail. I'm a famed sword-level sword wielder. Only the Sword Committee and the Discipline Committee have the right to interrogate me. Other than that, I have the right to refuse to answer anyone's questions. Lock me up." It had to be said that this was the best decision Yi Fan had made. Yi Fan was already full of flaws under Guhan's interrogation. He was utterly defeated. If he kept asking, Yi Fan probably wouldn't be able to take it anymore. Therefore, Yi Fan decided to act shamelessly and used the sword wielder's law to his advantage. The truth was just like what Yi Fan said. Guhan had no right to interrogate Yi Fan. The only ones who had the right to interrogate a sword wielder were the Discipline Committee and the Sword Committee. At most, Guhan could use the name of the temporary Lunar Star Guardian to lock Yi Fan up. However, when the relevant personnel from the Discipline Committee and the Sword Committee arrived at Shanhai Pass, it would probably be more than 10 days later. In these 10 days, Yi Fan had plenty of time to plan a lot of things. No one knew what kind of sentence the Discipline Committee and the Sword Committee would give to Yi Fan after they took over Yi Fan's case. To be honest, the evidence that Guhan had listed so far wasn't enough to form a complete chain of evidence. As long as there was a skilled lawyer and some background help, Yi Fan might be acquitted in the end. Moreover, Yi Fan had been in Shanhai Pass for almost 3 years. When he was released, he would be able to leave Shanhai Pass directly. Guhan wouldn't be able to control him anymore. Looks like the traitor is most likely Yi Fan. That's right. This time, it can't be wrong. The traitor must be him. Although Yi Fan's actions had won him a chance of survival and safety, it also exposed his guilty conscience. He could only use this shameless method to fight against Guhan. He didn't dare to continue confronting Guhan. Even an idiot could guess that Yi Fan was most likely the traitor. Yi Fan had confessed without being pressed. But even so, the other swordsmen could only look at Yi Fan helplessly. They couldn't do anything to him. This was because the rules of Shanhai Pass were like this. If they wanted the rules of Shanhai Pass to protect them, then they had to abide by the rules of Shanhai Pass first. They could only watch as Yi Fan was locked up in prison, waiting for the disciplinary committee members who had never fought with the Wu people to judge whether this damned traitor was a traitor or not. All right, send someone to lock me up. Yi Fan put his hands together provocatively, signaling Guhan to quickly lock him up. Yi Fan, oh Yi Fan, you're so smart. Why did you become a traitor? He suddenly grabbed Yi Fan's wrists tightly. Instinctively, Yi Fan wanted to break free from Guhan's control. But sadly, he realized that no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't open even a millimeter of space. There's also such a rule in Shanhai Pass. If you can find concrete evidence that proves that a swordbearer has betrayed humanity, and that he's at the front line of the battle with the Wu people, and that is recognized by all the other swordbearers, then the swordbearer has the right to kill him directly to prevent the morale of the army from being shaken, Guhan said with narrowed eyes. That's right, there's such a rule. But you have to show me concrete evidence that proves that I'm a traitor, Yi Fan said with a ferocious expression. All the evidence from before came from your mouth and your hands. It's not conclusive evidence. You don't have any conclusive evidence to prove that I'm a traitor. Yi Fan was right. The evidence that Guhan had just presented was indeed not conclusive evidence. However, Guhan didn't panic. He sneered. Don't you understand? If I dare to say that, then I must have some conclusive evidence. Then show me the conclusive evidence, Yi Fan said with a grimace. This is the conclusive evidence you want. Guhan suddenly reached for Yi Fan's waist and pulled out the sword Maiden from its scabbard. Demon sword. What a good famous sword Maiden. Guhan held Yi Fan's famous sword Maiden, demon sword in his hand. Seeing that his own sword Maiden was in Guhan's hand, Yi Fan's expression instantly changed. Like a mad tiger, he tried to break free from Guhan's hand and snatch his famous sword Maiden back. It seemed that this was indeed a solid piece of evidence. But then again, how could Yi Fan's sword Maiden be conclusive evidence? Chapter 1028. Just as I guessed. Guhan's eyes swept across the demon sword's blade, revealing an expression of as expected. Then, Guhan projected the details of the demon sword's blade in front of everyone. At this moment, everyone discovered that there was actually a silver-white talisman stuck on the demon sword's blade. The color of this talisman was exactly the same as the color of the blade itself. In addition, the talisman was also drawn with silver ink. Therefore, if one didn't look closely, they wouldn't be able to discover that there was such a talisman stuck on the demon sword's blade. Comrade Yi Fan, I don't know if you can tell me, what is the use of this talisman stuck on the blade? Gu Han asked while pinching Yi Fan's neck. Yi Fan didn't say anything, because he knew that any explanation would be futile. The use of the talisman only needed to scan it with the highest level AI to be able to clearly determine it. He simply couldn't hide the use of the talisman. This is a forbidden talisman. After scanning the talisman, the highest level AI said in a serious tone. Although talismans were widely used by human sword wielders, because some talismans' effects were too evil, they were forbidden by the Sword Council. These kinds of talismans were called forbidden talismans. This is the sword sealing talisman. As long as this talisman is stuck on the demon sword, the Sword Maiden will no longer be able to transform into the Sword Maiden form. She can only exist in the sword form forever. Then, the highest level AI explained the use of the talisman on the demon sword. What? This is actually the sword sealing talisman. No wonder I've never seen Yi Fan's Sword Maiden before. So it has always been sealed. This is the first time I've heard of such a talisman. Strange, why would Yi Fan use such a talisman to prevent his Sword Maiden from being able to transform? There's no benefit to it at all. Are you stupid? If Yi Fan was really a traitor, then everything he did could not escape the eyes of the Sword Lady who had been with him day and night. And the Sword Maiden will never betray humans. As long as the Sword Maiden exists in the Sword Maiden form, she will definitely tell us that Yi Fan is a traitor. Therefore, Yi Fan must seal his Sword Maiden into the sword form forever, so that his Sword Maiden won't jump out and expose his true colors. This sword wielder's words accurately explained why Yi Fan wanted to seal the demon sword. Apart from some sword maidens who have a deep relationship with their sword wielder, most sword maidens would choose the human option between the sword wielder and the human, in order to ensure the safety of humans. Therefore, after the demon god sword discovered Yi Fan's betrayal, it would inevitably announce Yi Fan's matter to the humans. Therefore, Yi Fan had no choice but to directly seal the demon god sword, preventing her from telling anyone about this matter. Some readers might be curious and ask, isn't the Sword Maiden controlled by the sword wielder to be liberated? As long as the sword wielder doesn't allow the Sword Maiden to be liberated, then the Sword Maiden would not be liberated. Why would they need to seal the talisman? These words were both right and wrong. The sword wielder could indeed use their own thoughts to stop the Sword Maiden from releasing, but once the sword wielder's thoughts were careless, or if the sword wielder simply fell asleep or fainted, then the demon sword that had lost the suppression of the sword wielder's thoughts would be able to release itself, and then find the surrounding sword wielder to tell them everything. Therefore, in order to be safe, Yi Fan had to seal the demon sword's sword form to ensure that the demon sword would not be liberated while he was asleep and inform the other sword wielder. Then it would be very easy to determine whether Yi Fan was a traitor or not. Gu Han only needed to remove the talisman on the demon sword and then use some methods to forcefully liberate the demon sword, allowing it to revert back to its Sword Maiden form. Then, the truth would be revealed. Rip. Gu Han's movements were very efficient as he tore off the talisman on the demon sword. Just as he was about to forcefully remove the seal on the demon sword, Yi Fan, who was still quibbling, suddenly knelt down powerlessly and hugged Gu Han's thigh as he begged, "I beg you. Don't liberate. Don't liberate the demon sword. I admit that I did everything. I am that damned traitor. I was the one who betrayed everyone. 6 months ago, I was the one who told the Wu people about the arrival of the human reinforcements. I was also the one who helped the Wu people kill those pitiful drivers. I was also the one who leaked the location of Lord Yaoguang and Lord Lilith to the Wu people. I was also the one who poisoned the wine and told Jiufeng Yaoguang that Lord Yaoguang had been transferred to the Baihu garrison residence. I was the one who purposely allowed myself to be taken hostage by the Wu people. Everything was done by me. I admit all of this. Please don't. I really don't have the face to see her." After saying this, Yi Fan knelt down on the ground and started wailing. He desperately rubbed his face against the ground as if he wanted to hide his face and express that he could no longer see anyone. Although everyone had already confirmed that Yi Fan was the traitor, but when Yi Fan really admitted all of this, everyone still felt shocked from the depths of their hearts. Yi Fan handled interpersonal relationships very well. Almost all the famous sword-bearers called Yi Fan brothers and treated Yi Fan as their best friend. Therefore, at this moment, when Yi Fan personally admitted that he was the traitor, many people felt their worldview collapse. They really could not believe that a person like Yi Fan would actually be a traitor to humanity. At the same time, a huge question emerged in their hearts. Why did Yi Fan have to be a traitor when he was doing so well as a human? Why did you betray humanity? Guhan asked this question on behalf of everyone. Did humans do something wrong to you? No, humans did not wrong me. I had to do it to save my sister. Yi Fan said in a sobbing voice, I'm from Yuzhang City. 12 years ago, Yuzhang City's ordinary district was breached by Yuan Ku. At that time, I was just a 17-year-old boy. At that time, out of curiosity, I sneaked to the edge of the city wall, wanting to see how the sword-bearers fought with my own eyes. In the end, I did not realize that I was only 8 years old. My sister and I were secretly following me to the edge of the city wall. In the end, the city wall was breached at that time. I could only take my little sister who I depended on for survival and run for our lives. We wanted to find the emergency entrance to the shelter, but when we finally found the intersection, a banshee discovered me and my little sister. I admit that I'm a bastard. I'm a beast. In order to escape, I abandoned my sister and rushed to the entrance of the shelter alone. But after I entered the shelter, I never saw my sister enter the shelter through the passage again. You have no idea how I survived those years alone. In those 2 to 3 years, I committed suicide more than 20 times. But each time, I was discovered by the highest level of artificial intelligence and was saved. So, I decided to become a sword-bearer, to become a sword master. I wanted to use my own strength to kill Yuan Ku and avenge my sister. In the end, I succeeded. I really became a sword-bearer. I also became a sword master with decent swordsmanship through self-training. Ancient sword rank swordsman, treasured sword rank swordsman, famed sword rank swordsman. When I finally reached this stage, I realized that my entire body was empty. All I wanted was for my sister to come back to life. Every night, I would hide in the bathroom and cry. The longer I cried, the more painful it became. At that time, I was on the verge of breaking down. I swore that if there was a way to revive my sister, I would be willing to die. In the end, I found a Yuan Ku who looked very much like my sister when I was patrolling. I chased after her. Unknowingly, I chased her to a base of the martyr's palace. I was surrounded by more than 10 dragon-level Yuan Ku and a meteor-level Yuan Ku. Just as I was about to die in battle, Yuenko, who looked exactly like my sister, appeared again. She told me that she was my sister, or rather, this body of hers was my sister's body. She was actually the banshee that attacked us at that time. A banshee can take over a human's body and live off the human's body. At the same time, as long as the banshee is willing to sacrifice herself and completely obliterate her soul, the human whose body has been taken over by the banshee can return and become the original human. At this point, Yi Fan couldn't control his emotions anymore. He couldn't speak and could only cry. Seeing that Yi Fan couldn't speak, Guhan decided to help Yi Fan finish his sentence. So, those Yuan Ku made a deal with you. As long as you agreed to become a traitor to humanity, they were willing to let the banshee who took over your sister's body obliterate herself and return your sister to you, right? Yes. That was the deal. Yi Fan raised his head and smiled sadly. I'm a coward. 12 years ago, I abandoned my sister. 12 years later, I abandoned the entire human race. I couldn't bear the pain in my heart and the desire to have my sister back. I agreed to the deal and became a traitor to humanity. What makes you think that those Yuan Ku will fulfill the deal? Don't you know that those Yuan Ku are beasts who go back on their words? Even if you really complete your mission, I'm afraid that not only will those Yuan Ku not return your sister to you, they will also kill you and your sister. That won't happen. Yi Fan shook his head. I already promised those Yuan Ku of the Martyr's Palace that after I complete my mission, my sister and I will undergo their transformation ceremony, turning from humans to Yuan Ku and truly becoming one of them. They have no reason to give up on a dragon class or possibly even nether class Yuan Ku for a mouse class Yuan Ku. They have no reason to break their promise. It seems that you really are a cowardly beast. Guhan sighed and placed the demon's sword beside Yi Fan. You say that you don't have the face to see her, but I can feel that she really wants to see you. If you have anything to say to your sword mistress, this will be your last chance. Chapter 1029. The demon's sword was placed in front of Yi Fan. Without the control of the sword sealing talisman, whether or not the demon's sword could be released into its sword maiden form depended on Yi Fan's own will. If Yi Fan wanted to communicate with the demon's sword for the last time, then he could take the initiative to release the demon's sword. On the contrary, he would forever lose the chance to talk to the demon's sword. Even if Guhan didn't immediately kill Yi Fan would still have all his sword scars destroyed. Then he would be locked up in a dark prison cell, waiting for the final judgment of the Sword Committee. After confirming that Yi Fan had betrayed humanity, this matter was no longer something that the Mountain Sea Pass Management Committee could handle. Therefore, the final decision would inevitably be handed over to the Sword Committee. In this era of destruction, the Sword Committee would never show mercy to a sword wielder like Yi Fan who had betrayed humanity and wasn't controlled by any evil magic. In the end, Yi Fan might be executed in the form of a television broadcast under the eyes of all humans. Therefore, this was the last chance for Yi Fan to communicate with the demon's sword. After this, the demon's sword would once again return to the sword pavilion. From then on, it would have nothing to do with him, and they would never have the chance to meet again. Yi Fan, who was kneeling on the ground, hesitated. One could see that his heart was yearning to see the demon's sword for the last time. The guilt he felt towards the demon's sword made him not have the courage to release it. He didn't know what to say or do to the demon's sword after it was released. Yi Fan's entire being was in a mess. Sigh. Yi Fan suddenly let out a long sigh. He made a decision in his heart. The demon's sword by his side also blossomed with a black light. Finally, it transformed into a slender figure with deep blue skin that was engraved with complex patterns. On her head were two sharp goat horns. She looked like a native beauty from Avatar Planet. This was Yi Fan's famous sword, the demon sword of Sword Maiden. The Wangliang sword was said to be a sword made from the bones of Wangliang, and according to the classic of mountains and seas, Wangliang was actually a kind of water ghost. Wangliang was the son of Emperor Zhuanxu, but he drowned in the water and became a water ghost. The image of the demon's sword was very similar to that of a drowning person. It's been 5 years, you've finally let me out. The demon's sword, who had once again been freed after 5 years, looked at its wielder with a complicated expression. Everyone else thought that when the demon monster sword was released, it would be incomparably furious at Yi Fan who had imprisoned it for 5 years. Unexpectedly, the demon sword's expression was so calm. It was as if it had just woken up from a nap. I'm sorry. Yi Fan turned his body and knelt down in front of the demon god sword. He did not even dare to raise his head to look at the demon god sword's face. Actually, I have been waiting for you. The demon sword said in a low and calm voice, I was waiting for you to ask me a question. Waiting for me to ask you what? Yi Fan subconsciously asked back. I was waiting for you to ask me whether I am willing to keep this secret for you, whether I am willing to help you save your sister. The demon sword's voice was still calm, but on the other side, Yi Fan could no longer remain calm. He finally raised his head, looking directly at his sword mother for the first time in 5 years. Then let me ask you now, are you willing to keep this secret for me, to keep the secret that I am a traitor to humanity? Are you willing to help me save my sister, and then live together with me and my sister forever? I am willing. I am originally a drowned water ghost. Why would I care about the life and death of other humans? The demon's sword smiled sadly, but it's all too late. Go in peace. I will erase all the memories of this rebirth, and never see you again. Thank you. Yi Fan once again knelt at the feet of the Demon Slayer sword, and the Demon Slayer sword once again turned into a ray of light, returning to its sword form. From then on, until the next time she met her sword wielder, the Demon Slayer sword had never been released. Who would have thought that it would be such an ending? Thinking about it, this Yi Fan is really quite pitiful. He really only did it to save his sister. After everything had calmed down, Guhan, Leslie Dracula, and Ku Rokin sat together in Guhan's Shising garrison, leisurely sipping on tea while sighing about everything that had happened today. There is nothing to be pitiful about. Abandoning his sister was already a huge mistake, but for his sister, he abandoned humanity. That is even more wrong. This kind of person should not be pitied even if he is cut into pieces. As Ku Rokin said this, his palms could not help but tremble. Even now, Ku Rokin was still immersed in his anger towards Yi Fan. Just because of this beast, how many people have died here that should not have been sacrificed? How many sisters have lost their brothers forever? How many children have lost their parents forever? These blood debts were all caused by Yi Fan. Even if he is cut into pieces, it would still be difficult to make up for his sins. The more Ku Rokin spoke, the angrier he became. Yes, you are right. This Yi Fan should indeed be cut into pieces, but this does not deny that he is very pitiful, right? Didn't the ancients before the great calamity say that hateful people must have a pitiful side? Why can't you be angry and at the same time feel pity for him? Leslie Dracula said. There is no such saying in this world, you are just being unreasonable. Ku Rokin angrily slammed the table. Fuck. You actually dare to slap the table in front of me? Leslie Dracula's expression turned angry. Then look at yourself. Didn't your Shosho also kill so many humans in Yuzhong City? But aren't you trying your best to get her back now? Perhaps you will be like that Yi Fan, betraying humanity to find your Shosho. Leslie Dracula originally thought that after she exposed Ku Rokin's pain, Ku Rokin would stand up and angrily refute her. But unexpectedly, Ku Rokin became silent, lowering his head without saying a word. Nobody knew what he was thinking. Hey, I say, you wouldn't really betray humanity for your Shosho, right? Leslie Dracula instinctively thought of something and immediately asked in disbelief. Enough, Ku Rokin is not that kind of person. He will never betray humanity. You are not allowed to say such words in the future, otherwise don't come here to drink tea anymore. Finally, it was Guhan's words that pushed Leslie Dracula back. Enough, then let's change the topic. Do you think what Demon Sword said at the end was true? Is she really willing to go against the conscience of Sword Maiden, go against humanity's righteousness, and help Yi Fan conceal the fact that he betrayed humanity? Leslie Dracula could not help but recall what Demon Sword said to Yi Fan at the end. From what Demon Sword said, even if Yi Fan did not seal her, she would still take the initiative to help Yi Fan conceal everything. This made Leslie Dracula smell a golden 8 o'clock romance drama. Could it be that this is love? Demon Sword has already reached the point of being crazy for love. This is really touching. Leslie Dracula secretly glanced at Guhan and then said in a daze, if there is someone who loves me like Demon Sword, how good would it be? It's getting late, everyone has been fighting for the whole day, let's all go back and rest. Guhan did not continue Leslie Dracula's words, but directly ordered them to leave. That's right, tomorrow all the Guardian Manors must still maintain absolute vigilance. Tomorrow is not a peaceful day, maybe tomorrow's storm will be even bigger than today's. Guhan, what do you mean by this? 10 of the 12 great shamans have already died, only 2 are still struggling at death's door. Could it be that these dead great shamans have evolved to the point that they only need one day to resurrect? Leslie Dracula curiously asked. The resurrection time of the great shamans has evolved from 2 to 3 years to half a year, and then from half a year to 9 days, so I have no doubt that tomorrow we will once again meet with those 12 great shamans. Guhan coldly said. It can't be. Leslie Dracula could not help but shiver, then immediately got up and prepared to leave the Shising garrison. While walking she muttered, then we really need to be vigilant, I don't want to fight with those great shamans again. After Ku Rokin and Leslie Dracula left the Shising garrison, Guhan silently sat alone in his bedroom. There was not a single sword maiden around him, including the starting point sword. All the sword maidens were called out by Guhan. In Guhan's words, he wanted to be alone tonight, and he did not want to be disturbed by the other sword maidens. Leslie Dracula was not the only one who was touched by Yi Fan's story. In fact, the person who was touched the most should be Guhan. This was because Guhan felt that Yi Fan's story was very similar to his own. Both of them had lost the people closest to them in the great attack of Yuzhong City 12 years ago, and both of them had desperately practiced their swordsmanship in order to take revenge on Yuan Ku, working hard to become a sword wielder. Until now, the stories of Guhan and Yi Fan were almost the same, and they had the same beginning. This was especially so when Yi Fan described how he was in a state of mental breakdown every day because he was obsessed with the guilt and remorse he felt for his sister. He wanted to resurrect his sister at all costs, and Guhan suddenly realized that he had been in the same state before. However, Yi Fan could vent his hatred by killing Yuan Ku, but Guhan was not a sword wielder. He could only stay in his own home, set up a plan over and over again, and practice his swordsmanship, numbing himself with cold pain and darkness. The direct result was that in the first instance Guhan entered the game, he killed Kanzu with his sword. This was probably the darkest moment in Guhan's life and character. If this continued, Guhan even felt that he might become a person like Yi Fan, a person who would do anything to resurrect his parents, even if it meant sinking into darkness. But what changed me in the end? Ji Han couldn't help but ask himself this question, and then an incomparably familiar little face appeared in his mind. Qingpin, Yu Wang, Duyu, Yi Tian, Juzi, you're the best. Guhan suddenly hid his head under the blanket, just to cover the uncontrollable tears from the corner of his eyes. Chapter 1030. Early the next morning, when the restless Leslie Dracula and Ku Rokin arrived at the Shising garrison again to discuss matters regarding the defense with Guhan, they were surprised to find that the entire Shising garrison was empty. Not only was Guhan not in the garrison residence, but Guhan's sword maidens were also nowhere to be found. In the end, Leslie Dracula and Ku Rokin received a message from Guhan from the adorable dolls who stayed behind in the garrison residence. He told them not to worry about where he was, but to guard the garrison residence well and watch out for the Wu people's attacks. That was enough. After reading Guhan's message, Leslie Dracula and Ku Rokin mumbled to themselves at the same time, did this guy go looking for trouble with the Wu people alone? So, what was the truth? Leslie Dracula and Ku Rokin's guess was right. Guhan had indeed gone to look for trouble with the Wu people. However, Guhan did not go to the camp where the Wu people were gathered. Instead, he went to the Sunstar garrison's territory. Guhan was familiar with this place. It was the temporary landing spot of the Star Shuttle that Guhan had taken when he had just arrived at Shanhai Pass 6 months ago. It was the Sunstar Garrison's Imperial Star Garrison's garrison residence. It was also the core area of the Imperial Star Garrison's garrison residence. It was known as Shan City before the Great Calamity. However, Guhan did not enter the Shan City ruins. Instead, he walked to another ruin 11 kilometers to the northeast. The ruins were different from the modern city ruins that were filled with concrete and steel bars. The ruins here were made up of all kinds of stones and wood. From this, it could be seen that the buildings here were not the concrete and steel buildings of the ancient times before the Great Calamity, but the pavilions and terraces of the medieval era. Although there were only some broken walls and walls left, judging from the exquisite carvings on the stone ruins, these ruins must have been grand and magnificent in the past. It was a grand building that only high officials and nobles could build. In fact, before the Great Calamity, this place had been known as the 3 mausoleums beyond the pass, which were the royal mausoleums of the earliest emperors of the last dynasty of the Middle Ages, the Qing dynasty. The first one was the Yong Mausoleum, where the 4 ancestors of the Qing dynasty were buried, namely Nahachi's father, grandfather, great-grandfather, and great-grandfather. The second was Emperor Nurhasai's Fuling Mausoleum, and the third was Emperor Huang Taiji's Jiao Mausoleum. These 3 mausoleums were collectively known as the 3 mausoleums of the Outer Pass. Of course, following the arrival of the Great Calamity, this once incomparably illustrious mausoleum was no longer noticed by anyone. It was left here to be exposed to the elements, with no one paying attention to this place. Because there was no guardian manor stationed here, even battles would not take place here. If not for Guhan coming here today, it was likely that not a single human would be able to come here for at least a year or 2. It's definitely here. Guhan stood on top of Emperor Nurhasai's Fuling Mausoleum. Beneath his feet were some scattered tombstones and dilapidated buildings. Inferring from the geomancy layout, Guhan should be standing on the underground palace where Nurhasai was buried. Generally speaking, the buildings on the surface of the mausoleum were actually unimportant appendages. They were just some simple decorations and places for later generations to worship. The truly important part of the mausoleum was the underground palace, which was used to bury the coffins of the emperors. The underground palace was usually located 10 to 20 meters underground. There were abnormal emperors, such as Emperor Qin, whose underground palace was located more than 40 meters underground. Don't think that 40 meters was not too deep. It must be known that in ancient times, when people could only rely on manpower, building a huge underground palace 40 meters underground was a torturous task. In fact, the reason why the Qin dynasty was destroyed so quickly had a lot to do with the fact that Emperor Qin had used so much manpower to build his own imperial mausoleum. Even in the Celestial dynasty in modern times, all the underground palaces of the imperial mausoleums were strictly protected. Only some of the imperial mausoleums that had been completely robbed were open for people to visit. Obviously, Guhan's purpose in coming to the three mausoleums was not to see these dilapidated buildings on the surface. Guhan's purpose was the underground palace. The underground palace of the three mausoleums was not robbed, so the underground palace of the three mausoleums was not opened during the Celestial dynasty. Now that 1,000 years had passed, the entrance to the underground palace had long been buried by countless ruins. As far as the eye could see, it was impossible to find the entrance to the underground palace. But this did not matter. Mortals might have to use huge scanning equipment to find the entrance to the underground palace, but for Guhan, the method was much simpler. He directly stabbed the Juzi sword in his hand into the ground, and then a sword chi broke through the earth. Even if it was blocked by hard granite, Guhan's sword chi could still easily reach a depth of 20 to 30 meters underground. This distance covered the depth of the underground palace. As long as Guhan's sword chi could detect the existence of space under the land, it meant that the underground palace was under Guhan's feet. It did not take too long to explore the location of the underground palace. Guhan only experimented 20 to 30 times before he successfully explored a large amount of space under the soil of a broken stone lion statue. This space was located about 9 meters deep. Judging from the depth, it must be the underground palace of Fueling. Open. After confirming that the underground palace was under his feet, the Juzi sword in Guhan's hand bloomed with countless sword chi, like a large shield boring machine, smashing all the soil on the ground. The strange thing was that the crushed soil did not fall into the underground palace. Instead, it continued to fly into the sky. This was definitely because the sword chi had brought all the soil with it as it rotated. From this, it could be seen how terrifying Jiyu Han's control over the sword chi was. In less than a few minutes, Guhan drilled a passage to the underground. Without any hesitation, Guhan jumped directly from the intersection he opened and finally landed on the somewhat wet ground. The oxygen concentration in here is still 20%. After scanning the air composition in the underground palace with his personal terminal, Guhan was surprised to find that the oxygen concentration in the air in the underground palace was as high as 20%, which was not much different from the oxygen concentration of 21% in the normal air. Generally speaking, because the underground palace had been closed for a long time, and the original air in the underground palace had consumed a lot of oxygen because of the existence of bacteria, the oxygen concentration was only about 7%. Ordinary people would feel the lack of oxygen in the brain within a few minutes in such an environment. If they did not inhale oxygen immediately, they might even die from lack of oxygen. It was reasonable to say that Nahachi's Fueling had been closed underground for more than 1,000 years, and the oxygen concentration should be about 7%. But the oxygen concentration here was 20%. Then there was only one explanation. This underground palace was not completely closed. In the past 1,000 years, there must have been other channels to communicate with the outside world, so that the air from the outside could enter the underground palace. That was why the underground palace could maintain a 20% oxygen concentration. Sure enough, it's just as I guessed. This discovery confirmed Guhan's guess. He took out a flashlight and shone it on the surrounding walls. He found that he should be in the tunnel of the underground palace. The tunnel of the underground palace was extravagantly made of raw white marble. The price of each raw stone was enough for a family of 3 to live for 50 years at that time. And on the white marble, there were all kinds of complicated images. Because when Nahachi's Fueling mausoleum was built, The Qing dynasty was not Chinese, so the images carved on both sides were not like those in other tombs of the Qing dynasty, which were filled with cultural allusions and myths. Instead, they were carved with the magnificent life of Nahachi and various mysterious prayer symbols of shamanism. There was nothing much to see about shamanism, but the pictures used to describe Nurhasai's life were very beneficial to Ji Yuhan. At least, they solved many controversial topics about Nurhasai in history. For example, a certain expert of Korean descent swore to God that Nurhasai was actually a Korean, and that the whole Qing dynasty was founded by Koreans. There were a total of 5 copper doors in the tunnel of the underground palace, each of which was 3 or 4 meters high and made of heavy wrought copper. Each copper door weighed more than dozens of tons. It was reasonable to say that these copper doors in the underground palace should be closed, but when Guhan came here, he found that all the copper doors were open, which obviously confirmed Guhan's guess. Holding a flashlight, Guhan continued to walk deeper into the underground palace. After walking for more than 100 meters, he finally left the tunnel of the underground palace and entered a huge palace in the underground palace. This palace should be the palace where Nahachi's coffin was placed, because at this time, a very gorgeous wooden coffin was placed in the center. Beside the coffin was an antique coffin and a modern equipment that didn't match with the coffin. It was a medical pod that was still in operation and was constantly flashing green light. Once the medical pod started flashing green light, it meant that the patient in the medical pod had recovered and was now in a state of recovery. It wouldn't take long for the patient to crawl out of the medical pod. This medical cabin was very familiar to Guhan. It was the medical cabin that Yao Guang used. He never thought that Yao Guang's medical cabin would be stored in the underground palace of Nahachi's fueling. I said that a guest has come to visit. Is the owner not going to come out to see me? Guhan saw Yao Guang's medical cabin, but he was not in a hurry to rescue Yao Guang. Instead, he shouted at the empty palace. However, there seemed to be no owner here. No one answered Guhan's voice. Well, since the owner is not here, I, Guhan, don't mind being a robber. I'd like to see what kind of treasure is in Nahachi's coffin. Guhan snorted coldly. The Juzi sword in his hand instantly spat out a sword aura that was a few meters long. Guhan had no doubt that when the sword aura hit the coffin, the entire coffin would instantly be broken into pieces. Are kids nowadays so rude? Guhan's threat was effective. An old but dignified voice came from behind Guhan. Immediately, a middle-aged man in a yellow robe and crown, dressed like an emperor, appeared in front of Guhan. Chapter 1031. You are. Looking at the man dressed like an emperor, Guhan said hesitantly, I am the founder of the Great Qing dynasty, Nahachi, the founder of the Great Qing dynasty. Don't you want to kneel down and shout "Long live the emperor" when you see me? Nurhasai scolded sternly, why don't you kneel down when you see me? Your Qing dynasty was finished more than 1,000 years ago. We are all ordinary people now. There is nothing to kneel or not. Guhan said with a chuckle. What? My Qing dynasty is finished. Nurhasai looked confused, as if he could not accept the fact that the Qing dynasty was finished. He grabbed Guhan's shoulder and shook it hard, shouting, Impossible! Impossible! My Qing dynasty is protected by the disciples of the 8 banners. My disciples of the 8 banners can ride a 1,000-mile horse and pull a 10-pickle strong bow. In this icy Liaodong, the Ming dynasty's army is no match for my Qing dynasty. One of my disciples of the 8 banners can kill 10 Ming dynasty's Han people. My Qing dynasty will not be finished. From the way you speak, have you been staying in this underground palace all this time? Guhan circled around this Qing emperor. Are you not Yuan Ku? What Yuan Ku? I have never heard of such a name. Nurhasai flicked his sleeves. I just died and came back to life yesterday. You are the first person I have seen. How would I know that my Qing dynasty is finished? You said you came back to life. Guhan suddenly pinched Nurhasai's arm hard. Your skin and flesh are full of elasticity. This is not like a zombie's body. This is definitely a human body. What did you say? Have I been dead for a long time? Didn't I just die a few days ago? How did my body become a zombie? Nurhasai said inexplicably. Didn't I say it just now? Your Qing dynasty was finished more than 1,000 years ago, so you have been dead for more than 1,000 years. Ji Yuhan calculated for a moment. You died in 1626, and now it's the year 3009. To be precise, you should have died in 1383. What? I've been dead for so long. But it's only been a day since I passed through a light gate. How could I have died in the year 1383? Nurhasai continued to be dumbfounded. You said you came here through a door of light. Hearing Nahachi's words, Guhan's interest was piqued. Tell me, when did you see that light gate? That was a relapse of a gunshot wound I received during the battle. A poisonous sore grew on my back, so I decided to return to Shengjing. In the end, when I sat on the boat and went down the Crown Prince River, I felt like I had lost all my senses. I could only vaguely feel countless people kneeling beside my bed and wailing. I guessed that I was probably dead, but my soul didn't die. Therefore, I waited in peace for Oxhead and Horseface to bring me to the Netherworld. However, Oxhead and Horseface did not see it. Instead, they saw a mysterious door of light appear beside me. I walked through the door of light and arrived here. I walked around here for 2 or 3 hours, but I didn't see a single person. Only now did I meet you, a junior, and you actually told me that I have died in the year 1383. Then do you recognize this place? Guhan looked at the underground palace and asked. Of course I recognize it. Isn't this the underground palace that I built for myself? I personally designed the structure of this place, so I came back to life here. Nohachi said matter-of-factly. Do you still think that you have come back to life? Guhan smiled and pointed to the coffin in the middle. If you want, you can open the coffin and take a look. I believe you can see your corpse inside. That's impossible. I have come back to life. Why is my corpse still in the coffin? Nohachi said in disbelief. Did you crawl out of the coffin when you came back to life? If not, how do you know that your corpse isn't in the coffin? Guhan patted Nohachi on the shoulder, as if the person beside him was not a founding emperor, but a poor unlucky guy. It's very clear. You are a Yuan Ku who has just come to this world. I don't understand what you mean. What is this Yuan Ku you speak of? Nohachi was still in a state of confusion. The situation is like this. Guhan told Nohachi what happened after Nohachi's death and what happened after the apocalypse. Nohachi showed a sad and happy expression and prayed to the heavens loudly. The heavens have mercy on us. I didn't expect that the Jurchen race would actually defeat the Ming dynasty and become the orthodox dynasty of the Central Plains. Heavens, thank you for your love for Nohachi. Seeing Nohachi's frenzied roar towards the sky, Ji Yuhan couldn't help but sneer. This founding emperor of the great Qing dynasty truly lived up to his reputation as a wild boar. He didn't care at all about the extinction of the entire human race after the Great Calamity. Instead, he was extremely excited to hear that his great Qing dynasty would rule the world. It was obvious that in the heart of this founding emperor of the great Qing dynasty, the human race wasn't important. His great Qing dynasty was the most important. Okay, Comrade Qing dynasty's founder, now that you know that your Qing dynasty has a glorious and beautiful future, you can go on your way happily. Ji Yuhan suddenly placed the Juzi sword on Nurhasai's neck, giving Nurhasai a big fright. Boy, what are you doing? You have no enmity with me. Why do you want to kill me? Nohachi asked inexplicably. If Guhan was in Nohachi's position, Guhan would also be very inexplicable. Anyone who suddenly came back to life and saw a junior who was talking and laughing with him suddenly draw his sword and wanted to kill him would feel very inexplicable. I have already said that Yuan Ku is the mortal enemy of mankind. Either humans kill all Yuan Ku, or Yuan Ku kills all humans. This is just like a cat eating a mouse. It is a matter of course. There is no need for any reason. Guhan said coldly. Are you kidding me? I am not Yuan Ku at all. I am a human with the purest bloodline. How can I try to exterminate the human race? You must be mistaken, or you are simply a descendant of Zhu Ming. You want to kill me to avenge your Ming dynasty, right? Although Nohachi had to beg for mercy at this time, he was still an emperor after all. Even if he begged for mercy, He did not put down his pride and still did not forget to threaten Guhan. Fine, I will spare your life for the time being. Guhan thought for a moment, but took back his juicy sword. The reason why Guhan took back the juicy sword was, of course, not because he really wanted to spare this Yuan Ku's life. But a thought suddenly flashed in Guhan's mind, and it was because of this thought that Guhan decided to spare Nahachi's life for the time being. Anyway, this Nahachi's strength was very low. At most, he was at the level of a ghost level or soul level Yuan Ku. To kill such a Yuan Ku, Guhan only needed a sword chi. It was not necessary to kill him when needed. Humph. Although Guhan spared his life, Nahachi's anger burst out when he thought that a little guy had a sword on his neck just now. If it was before he died, as long as he gave the order, countless warriors of the 8 banners would come out and cut this damn Han into pieces. But now that he had just been resurrected, his body was far less powerful than a Han in his prime, and he did not have any weapons in his hand. So he still needed to endure the anger in his heart and wait for an opportunity to kill this damn Han for revenge. He must let this damn Han understand how sinful it was to offend the great Qing dynasty's Taizu. Little brother, what should we do now? I think we should first get out of this underground palace, and then you can accompany me to find my descendants of the Qing royal family. I will definitely let my descendants greatly reward you. How about I confer you the title of Dorobeels? The title of Dorobeels could only be conferred by the Manchurian royal family of the Qing dynasty. There were a total of 12 titles in the royal family of the Qing dynasty. From the lowest rank of Feng'an General, they were Fengua General, Fengua General, Fengua Marquis, Fengua Duke, Fengua Duke, Fengua Beizi, Dorobeels, Duanwang Duoluo, and Prince Hashiror. Among them, Dorobeels was ranked 3rd among the 12, and was considered an extremely prominent title in the Manchurian royal family. Generally, only the 3rd-generation blood relatives of the emperor or the descendants of the crown prince were qualified to be conferred such a title. Nahachi directly conferred the title of Dorobeels to Guhan. This was really generous. If this brother was in the Qing dynasty, it would be worthy of special mention. It would be the greatest honor in the world. Although Nahachi hated Guhan to the core, he had no choice but to rely on Guhan's strength. Otherwise, according to what Guhan said, it would be very dangerous for him to act alone in this dangerous world. He might die in the hands of humans or Yuan Ku. This Han seemed to have some strength. He would first use the title of Dorobeels to tempt him. When he found his descendants, there would be no more Dorobeels for him. He would just let his descendants be chopped into pieces by this damned Han. Stop dreaming. In the database of the Sword Committee, there are less than 20 people with the surname Aizen Joro left in the world, and among these 20 people, there isn't even a sword bearer. Your descendants will be very grateful if they can eat their fill. What Dorobeels are you talking about? Guhan's contemptuous words made him feel greatly insulted, but he didn't dare to insult Guhan. Forget it. If you don't go, I'll go by myself. Great Qing's Taizu's temper rose. He had already seen the light in the tunnel that Guhan came in from. He knew that when Guhan came in, he must have opened the entrance to the underground palace. Therefore, he decided to leave the underground palace alone. Even if he died outside, he didn't care about this damned Han. If you dare to leave more than 5 steps away from me, I'll kill you right away. Guhan's murderous words instantly sent a chill down Nahachi's back. Nahachi was also a god of slaughter who had walked out of the battlefield and could clearly feel how much murderous a person's words contained. The moment Nahachi heard Guhan's words, he clearly knew that Guhan wasn't lying. He would really kill him. Brat, you're infuriating me. Nahachi stomped his feet in anger, but he didn't dare to leave 5 steps away from Guhan. On the other side, Guhan walked slowly to the side of Nahachi's coffin and was surprised to find that the lid on Nahachi's coffin was still open. Guhan gently pushed the coffin open. This is. Seeing clearly what was in the main coffin, Guhan felt as if his heart was being tightly gripped by something. Inside the coffin was a skeleton, and in the abdominal cavity of the skeleton, there was a drop of pitch-black liquid that looked like ink suspended in the center of the abdominal cavity. Zhu Wu's blood essence, pure black. This sentence describing Zhu Wu's blood essence suddenly emerged in Guhan's mind. Chapter 1032. Just as I guessed, Zhu Wu's blood is hidden in this underground palace, but I didn't expect it to be in Nahachi's coffin. Gu Han was both surprised and delighted to see the black Zhu Wu's blood. No wonder humans couldn't find the location of Zhu Wu's blood despite searching the Shanhai Pass countless times in the past 100 years. He didn't expect that Zhu Wu's blood wasn't in the Wu people's territory at all, but was hidden in the humans' own territory. As the saying goes, the most dangerous place is the safest place. If those swordbearers in the Shanhai Pass knew that the Zhu Wu's blood they had been searching for was right next to their pillows, they would definitely be so angry that they would crawl out of their graves. However, what Gu Han was curious about was that there was such a well-hidden underground base under the eyes of humans. If the 12 great wizards led the elite forces of the Wu people to launch a surprise attack on humans from this underground palace, the humans would probably be caught unprepared, and the success rate of breaking the Jutian star formation would be greatly increased. Why didn't the Wu people do this? It seems that the importance of Zhu Wu's blood to the Wu people is far greater than breaking the Jutian star formation. Because if the surprise attack from the underground palace fails, this underground palace will definitely be exposed. If they lose such a good place to hide Zhu Wu's blood, it won't be easy for the Wu people to find another place like this. Therefore, the Wu people can resist the temptation to launch a surprise attack on humans from here, and choose to hide Zhu Wu's blood better. After all, Zhu Wu's blood is the root of all the Wu people. Without Zhu Wu's blood, the Wu people will lose the ability to constantly resurrect, and they will be completely extinct. Gu Han thought to himself. Although this reason was very good, Gu Han felt that the real reason shouldn't be so simple. There should be some hidden reasons that he didn't know. Strange. Why is there such a drop of black blood in my bones? Could it be the black blood from the poisonous sore that killed me back then? On the other side, Nurhasai also came over. Seeing his own bones with his own eyes, Nurhasai felt very strange. There was an indescribable sense of drama and fear. It was just that Nahachi was very curious about the drop of black blood floating in his chest, and guessed that it was the extravasated blood from his sore. Gu Han was too lazy to pay attention to Nahachi. What blood clot? His blood had long evaporated without a single drop left. There was no blood clot left. Very well, now is the time to destroy the root of the Wu people. As long as I take away this drop of Zhu Wu's essence blood, the Wu people will have one less great wizard forever. Since Zhu Wu's essence blood, which represented the root of the Wu people, was here, Gu Han naturally wouldn't be polite. He quickly took out an empty test tube from his dimensional pocket and prepared to use this test tube to take away this drop of Zhu Wu's essence blood. Gu Han carefully used the test tube to cover the Zhu Wu's essence blood floating in the air. This action made Nahachi roll his eyes. Were these descendants sick in the head? Why were they so interested in the extravasated blood in his sore? Could it be that after thousands of years, the extravasated blood had become divine blood that could cure all diseases? Leaving aside Nahachi's imagination, on the other side, the process of Gu Han's attempt to take away Zhu Wu's essence blood did not go smoothly. When Gu Han put the suspended Zhu Wu's essence blood into the test tube and lifted it up to take away, the whole test tube suddenly exploded, and the Zhu Wu's essence blood was still floating in the same place without any change. Gu Han tried with a few more test tubes and found that the results were the same. The Zhu Wu's essence blood seemed to be fixed in this position in the air. When Gu Han tried to take away Zhu Wu's essence blood with the test tube, the fixed Zhu Wu's essence blood directly broke the test tube. Could it be that the material of the glass was too fragile? As a result, Gu Han used different containers to try to take away Zhu Wu's essence blood. These containers were all fragile in front of the fixed Zhu Wu's essence blood. Even the containers made of dimensional alloy had a small hole pierced through by Zhu Wu's essence blood. It seems that only something of the same level as Zhu Wu's essence blood can take away Zhu Wu's essence blood. Among all the alloys, only Emperor alloy is suitable for Zhu Wu's essence blood. However, I only have Emperor alloy powder in my hands. It's impossible to take away Zhu Wu's essence blood with this powder. But apart from Emperor alloy, is there anything else that can be of the same level as Zhu Wu's essence blood? Gu Han thought silently. Suddenly, his mind lit up and something appeared in his mind. He saw Guhan take out a test tube from his dimensional pocket. However, this test tube was different from the previous empty test tube. This test tube was filled with blood. This was a test tube filled with emperor blood. Zhu Wu's essence blood was the blood of the desolate level Yuan Ku Zhu Wu. Then, the only thing that was equivalent to the desolate level Yuan Ku was the blood of an emperor sword wielder. With a tentative attitude, Guhan gently opened the cover of the emperor blood test tube. This test tube of emperor blood was already half used. At this time, there was only the other half left in the test tube. Guhan tilted the test tube slightly and aimed the test tube's mouth at the suspended Zhu Wu's essence blood. Then, something miraculous happened. The previously motionless Zhu Wu's essence blood actually floated toward the mouth of the test tube and finally entered the test tube. This time, Guhan gently lifted it. This drop of Zhu Wu's essence blood left Nahachi's coffin along with the test tube. It was truly held in Guhan's hand. Through the glass, Guhan observed the situation in the test tube. Although Zhu Wu's essence blood entered the test tube of its own accord, Zhu Wu's essence blood did not enter the test tube to become friends with the emperor blood. On the contrary, Zhu Wu's essence blood entered the test tube to fight. Zhu Wu's essence blood rampaged in the test tube, desperately trying to collide with the emperor blood. Although the emperor blood far outnumbered Zhu Wu's essence blood, the emperor blood seemed to be very afraid of Zhu Wu's essence blood. It did not dare to confront Zhu Wu's essence blood head-on. It could only constantly avoid the collision of Zhu Wu's essence blood. The two were in a stalemate in the test tube for a while. Looks like using the emperor blood to attract Zhu Wu's essence blood is not a good idea. After I take away all the Zhu Wu's essence blood, I must find a place to store them. After thinking about it, Guhan prepared to put the test tube into his dimensional pocket. But before he could put it in, Guhan suddenly flashed backward. The next second, a golden bird with 9 tails appeared where Guhan had been standing. Phoenix. It's a phoenix. It really is a phoenix. Nahachi looked at the big bird that suddenly appeared beside him with his mouth agape. He immediately associated it with the symbol of the royal family, the phoenix. Phoenix my ass. I'm a phoenix, not a phoenix. Other than that old bitch who's neither a man nor a woman, no bird in the world would use such a stupid name. When the great shaman Jiufeng heard Nahachi call out the word phoenix, he immediately became furious and reprimanded Nahachi. Let me give everyone a scientific explanation. The so-called phoenix was not a kind of bird, but a bird of 2 different genders. In fact, the phoenix was a male bird, while the phoenix was a female bird. Legend has it that only the ancestor of all phoenixes, the first bird at the beginning of the world, truly used the name phoenix. However, this phoenix was a hermaphrodite. After that, there were no more hermaphrodite phoenixes among his descendants, only the male and female phoenixes. So the question was Jiufeng, who had always regarded herself as a female, male or female? Jiufeng, I was just about to look for you. I didn't expect you to come to me in person. Guhan looked at Jiufeng, who suddenly appeared in front of him with a face full of smiles. As long as he killed Jiufeng, then the Wu people would only have Chang'e, the last great shaman left. Damn human, how did you find this place? Jiufeng only then realized that now was not the time to argue with Nahachi about the word phoenix. The true enemy was the damned human in front of him. Jiufeng could not understand how the underground palace, which had been hidden for more than a century, had been found by Jiyu Han in such a short period of time. This is all thanks to you. Guhan smiled even more happily. If you hadn't brought Yaoguang's medical pod here, how could I have found this place? You hid a locator in the medical pod. Jiufeng exclaimed, but immediately said, that's impossible. This underground palace has been sealed by the Wu people with the most powerful blood formation. No signal can leave the underground palace. The locator's signal can't be transmitted to the surface. You're right. Even quantum signals can't be transmitted here. Guhan waved the personal terminal in his hand and found that it was offline. This was the core area of the Guardian Mansion of the Supreme Star. Logically speaking, it should be the best place for quantum signals. However, Guhan's personal terminal had completely lost contact with the outside world. Clearly, The blood formation in the underground palace was very effective. Things like signals still could not be transmitted from the underground palace to the outside world. Then how did you find this place? 9 Phoenix's entire body tensed up. She really couldn't figure out how Ji Yuhan had managed to locate the location of the underground palace. Gu Han did not answer Zhou Feng's question. Instead, he asked Zhou Feng, although this underground palace can block almost all kinds of signals, there's something that even the void can't block. Do you know what it is? Me. How would I know something that belongs to you humans? Zhou Feng's 9 tails were raised high in the air. She looked disdainful. That's it. It's the bond between us sword bearers and sword ladies. Gu Han quietly walked to the side of the medical pod and pressed a button in a hidden corner of the medical pod. A secret compartment popped up. Then, Gu Han took out a light blue long sword from the secret compartment. Past water sword, thank you for your hard work, Gu Han said as he gently stroked the blade of the long sword. It turned out that this sword was Gu Han's ancient sword, the past water sword. The thing that Gu Han used to locate the location was not some high-tech equipment. It was the bond between his sword mark and the sword lady that could not be severed. Chapter 1033. Hearing Gu Han's explanation, Zhou Feng's face turned red. She had never thought that she would be the one who led the wolf into the house. She had been too careless, relying on the excellent shielding ability of the underground palace. If she had checked Yaoguang's medical chamber properly before she returned, then Gu Han would never have found such a secret underground palace. Now, even Zhu Wu's blood essence had been taken away by Gu Han. Wait. You arrived at the Guardian's mansion in Baihu later. You have never touched this medical chamber. Did you already know that I would take this medical chamber away? Zhou Feng was not stupid. She immediately realized what was going on. You've finally found out. Gu Han smiled. That's right. Actually, I had already put the past water sword in the medical chamber last night. So, you deliberately let me find the medical chamber. Could it be that the person has already been exposed? Zhou Feng was shocked. If you're talking about Yi Fan, then he has already been locked in the safe underground prison. What awaits him is the severe punishment of the human beings. You have no more spies among the human beings, Gu Han said. So, you've already found out that Yi Fan is a spy. I can't believe that the entire Wu people have been tricked by you. Zhou Feng spat out a mouthful of blood. This was not almost spitting out blood like before, but a real mouthful of blood. A large amount of pitch-black blood gushed out of Zhou Feng's mouth like a fountain. This senior sorcerer had actually spat out dozens of kilograms of blood because of Gu Han's anger. However, Zhou Feng did not know that Gu Han had only confirmed that Yi Fan was a spy after she had left. After all, Gu Han did not have any conclusive evidence. He had only been suspicious of Yi Fan at the beginning, so he had sent someone to keep an eye on Yi Fan. In the end, he found out that Yi Fan had gone to Baihu's mansion in the middle of the night to ask about Yaoguang. Then, he had hidden the past water sword in Yaoguang's medical chamber. Unexpectedly, he had found the most secret place of the Wu people. Suck. Zhou Feng took a deep breath and then said to Gu Han, if you give me back Zhu Wu's blood essence, I promise you on behalf of the Wu people that you will stay in your own territory for 10 years and will never hurt any human. You should know the credibility of the Wu people. Do you think I'm a fool? Gu Han said disdainfully, as long as I destroy this drop of Zhu Wu's blood essence, the Wu people will lose a senior sorcerer forever. This is not something that can be replaced by 10 years. If I let the Wu people rest peacefully for 10 years, won't we humans face a super strong wave of attack after 10 years? Then 20 years it is. Zhou Feng immediately doubled the number of years and added, in these 20 years, the population of the Wu people will not exceed 100,000. If you are worried, you can send messengers to check the number of the Wu people freely among the tribes. No way. Gu Han said dryly. 50 years. Zhou Feng gritted her teeth and said, in these 50 years, the population of the Wu people will be limited to 50,000 people. Furthermore, after the 50 years are over, you will be given another 10 years to prepare. During this preparation period, the Wu people will not attack the human race's defense line. Both sides can only fight in the Wu people's territory. Jiufeng saw that Guhan was still unmoved after saying that and said angrily, "This drop of Zhu Wu's blood essence belongs to the Xianming tribe. As long as I, Jiufeng, do not die, the Wu people will still have 12 senior sorcerers. Even if you destroy this drop of Zhu Wu's blood essence, the strength of the Wu people will not decline. Look at what you are saying. If I kill you, won't the Wu people never have a senior sorcerer, Jiufeng? Who knows, the entire Xianming tribe might even be wiped out. Then what do you want?" Jiufeng was instantly anxious. The Wu people really could not lack any drop of Zhu Wu's blood essence. If Jiufeng had not known that even 10 of her would not be a match for Guhan, Jiufeng would not have negotiated with Guhan. She would have just taken it by force. Hand over Liuonian Ling and guarantee that the Wu people will not attack the Shanhai Pass defense line for the next 100 years. At the same time, the total number of Wu people will be suppressed to less than 10,000. Then, I will return this drop of Zhu Wu's blood essence to you. At the same time, remove all the shielding blood arrays in your territory and let the human race install a surveillance system without any blind spots. This way, I can ensure that the Wu people will not pose a threat to the human race, Guhan said in a low voice. That's impossible. Nine Phoenix let out a strange cry. It's fine if it's 100 years, but if our Magi population is only 10,000, wouldn't we be at your mercy? Furthermore, wouldn't we be completely exposed to the eyes of the human race if we were to install surveillance systems in our territory? Wouldn't it be easy for the human race to exterminate all the Wu people? With the 12 senior sorcerers like you around, how can the Wu people be exterminated so easily? Furthermore, even if the Wu people are really exterminated, can't you still rely on Zhu Wu's blood essence to be reborn? Guhan persuaded gently. I know that this request is a little hard for you to accept. Actually, if the Wu people reduce the number of people in the Shanhai Pass, the human race will also reduce the number of troops in the Shanhai Pass. The world outside the Shanhai Pass is too dangerous and lacks swordbearers. If we can transfer half of the swordbearers in the Shanhai Pass, the threat that the Wu people face will be reduced by half. The Wu people will still be relatively safe. As for the surveillance system, it's just to ensure that you will fulfill your promise. The surveillance system itself does not have any lethality. As long as you abide by your promise, the surveillance system will not exist. Anyway, the human race is not interested in watching the Wu people mate, Guhan said in a cheap way. What nonsense are you spouting, B*****? The Wu people never do such dirty things, Jiufeng said angrily when she heard Guhan mention the word mating. Yes. The Wu people reproduce asexually, not sexually. I almost forgot about this. Guhan's words almost made Jiufeng vomit blood again. Fine. I've told you my request. If you don't agree, I'll kill you right now and destroy this drop of ancestral witch's blood essence. This way, I'll be able to gain something. After Guhan said that, the past water sword in his hand began to emit sword chi. It was obvious that he wanted to kill Jiufeng. Although Jiufeng did not care about her own life and death, she was very concerned about the Zhu Wu's blood essence. When she saw that Guhan was about to make a move, she immediately said, I promise you everything you said. Return the Zhu Wu's blood essence to me now, and I will agree to all your requests. There's no proof. Of course, I can't return it to you now. Return Liuonian Ling to me first, and then follow me to the Taiyin garrison to discuss the details. When the Wu people's population is reduced to only 10,000 people and all the surveillance systems are installed, I will naturally return the Zhu Wu's blood essence to you, Guhan said. In that case, wouldn't I, Jiufeng, become a complete fool? Of course, Jiufeng would not listen to Guhan's words. Of course, Guhan did not think that Jiufeng would be so stupid. The excessive request was just to pave the way for the following words. Then let's each take a step back. You return Liuonian Ling to me, and I will return the Zhu Wu's blood essence to you. 3 days later, you will organize a delegation of the Wu people, and we will discuss the details in the Taiyin garrison. How about that? Guhan finally put forward a more reliable suggestion. That's it then. After saying that, Jiufeng disappeared into the depths of the underground palace. It seemed that she had gone to find Liunian Ling. Nohachi watched the whole transaction in confusion. After Jiufeng disappeared, Nohachi walked to Guhan. I seem to have witnessed a shameful transaction. Why do you use the words shameful? Guhan looked at Nohachi with interest and asked, my transaction is above board, and I have to report it to the Human Sword Commission to establish a file. Why is it shameful? Because you don't want to return the Zhu Wu's blood essence to that phoenix. Nohachi still called Jiufeng a phoenix. You are lying to that stupid bird. You don't want to focus on completing the transaction at all. How did you know? Guhan was surprised. He did not expect that Nohachi could see through his mind. What's so strange about it? I am the founding emperor of the Jin dynasty. I have experienced no less than 100 battles in my life, and I am used to all kinds of deception. Your deceit is all my leftover tricks. Nohachi said proudly, I tricked the carpenter emperor of the Ming dynasty into signing 3 contracts with me, and also tricked the stupid emperor into killing Xiong Tingbai, a very tricky guy. In the end, even the last bit of Qi Jiguang's family was killed by me in the Battle of Sa-Erhu. My deceit is not a person, but the whole world. Your little trick is just child's play in front of me. How can I not see through it? Guhan did not speak. Although this Nohachi was Yuan Ku, he was after all the founding emperor of a generation. His vision and knowledge were really extraordinary, and he did see through Guhan's true intentions. But while he was thinking, Jiufeng's figure appeared in the underground palace again. This time, Jiufeng's claws were holding a girl who was sleeping with her eyes closed. It was Liunian Ling who had been taken away for 10 days. It's Ling. Guhan only took one look at Liunian Ling, and he was sure that this Liunian Ling was not a fake, but the real Liunian Ling. Thank the heavens, Ji Yuhan could finally put down the huge stone in his heart. Chapter 1034. I've brought you the person you want. Now, you should give me back Zhu Wu's blood essence. Jiufeng grabbed Liunian Ling's body and said to Guhan. Wait, why is Liunian Ling still in a coma? Did you guys do something to her body? Did you put some kind of poison in her body? I want Liunian Ling in good condition, not Liunian Ling in a coma. Guhan said harshly. Don't worry, we didn't do anything to her body. We just fed her Xiong Liu's blood. Xiong Liu's blood can easily hypnotize mortals. She killed 5 senior magi by herself. If she's awake, we can't keep her, so we can only do this. Jiufeng explained hurriedly. Then wake her up, and we'll exchange, said Guhan. He thought it was a simple request, but Jiufeng frowned deeply after hearing it. There's no antidote for Xiong Liu's blood. She can only wake up after the effect of the drug has worn off. Xiong Liu fed her 100 drops of blood just in case. Ordinary people need at least 10 years to wake up. Although Liu Nian's physique is extraordinary, it will take at least 10 days for her to wake up. How can I wake her up in such a short time? That's easy. I've brought a medical pod with me. You can put Liunian Ling in it. As long as she's fine, I'll return Zhu Wu's blood essence to you. That's the beginning of the deal. Guhan put forward a reasonable suggestion. Okay. Jiufeng was anxious to get back Zhu Wu's blood essence, so she agreed to Guhan's request. Therefore, Guhan quickly took out his medical pod from his dimensional pocket and opened the lid. Just as Jiufeng was about to place Liunian Ling's body into the medical pod, an accident happened. Phoenix. Lady Jiufeng. Her Majesty Jiufeng. Heavenly Venerable Jiufeng, you can't. Heavenly Venerable Jiufeng, you can't. Nohachi, who was in charge of the onlookers, suddenly broke the good atmosphere of the transaction. He hurriedly ran to Jiufeng's side and said loudly. Probably because he didn't know how to address Jiufeng, Nohachi changed several titles in a row until he felt that it was more appropriate to use the word Heavenly Master. Why not? Jiufeng asked. Empyrean Jiufeng doesn't know that this despicable person is lying to you. When I spoke to him just now, he admitted that he was lying to you. He doesn't want to return Zhu Wu's blood essence to you at all. He's just doing it for his woman. Nohachi betrayed Guhan without hesitation. Heavenly Venerable, think about it. Since he can tamper with the glass coffin, he must be able to tamper with this glass coffin. Once you put his woman into the glass coffin, I'm afraid this glass coffin will immediately return to his hands. Empyrean Jofeng, you will lose everything. Nahachi didn't know the name of the medical pod, so he could only use the name glass coffin based on its appearance. It had to be said that the name glass coffin was very appropriate. The medical pod looked like a coffin made of glass. Human, is what he said true? Jofeng immediately withdrew Liunian Ling and stared at Guhan. Sigh. Hearing Jofeng's question, Guhan couldn't help but sigh. I wanted to solve it in a simpler way, but it seems that I still have to resort to violence. Hearing this, Jofeng felt that something was wrong and immediately wanted to escape in the direction where she had disappeared. Although Jofeng knew very well that she couldn't beat Guhan, she thought that she could at least run away. As long as she tried her best to escape, Guhan definitely wouldn't be able to catch up with her. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to escape from Guhan's hands so many times. But Jofeng never expected that when she took a step, Guhan's figure had already appeared behind her. Before Jofeng had time to attack, her bird claw took a hit from Guhan's sword. The golden and extraordinarily sharp phoenix claw was instantly cut off by Guhan's juicy sword. Together with Liunian Ling, they were directly snatched away by Guhan. Yes, the whole process was so simple and easy. It only took less than 100 words of description for Guhan to snatch Liunian Ling back from Jofeng's claws. When Guhan first entered Shanhai Pass and faced the first great wizard Quafu, it took him 5 chapters with a total of more than 15,000 words to finish typing. And in the end, Guhan didn't really defeat Quafu. It was just that Quafu was afraid of the bullet in Jiyu Xuanwu's hand, so he had to let her escape. From this, it could be seen how terrifying Guhan's strength had improved in the past 6 months. I will kill you. When Jofeng saw that her only hostage had been snatched away by Guhan, she was instantly burned with anger. If Liunian Ling was still in her hands, then Jofeng would still have the capital to bargain with Guhan. But now that Liunian Ling had been snatched away by Guhan, Jofeng had lost the capital to trade with Guhan. Guhan would never return Shen Ming's Zhu Wu blood essence to her. At the same time, it was impossible for Guhan to keep a great wizard alive. He would definitely kill her. Since that was the case, Jofeng couldn't care less about the difference in strength between her and Guhan. She turned around and fought with Guhan with all her might. But it was all in vain. Nohachi, who was on the ground, could only see that the human and Jofeng were fighting in the underground palace. Not only could they fight in the air, but they were also moving so fast that Nohachi's eyes couldn't see anything. Nohachi could only see shadows swaying in front of him, but he had no idea how the two were fighting. At the same time, all kinds of invisible energy kept exploding around, and the aftermath of the battle blew up the entire underground palace. The whole ground instantly became full of potholes, just like the surface of the moon. Is this an immortal technique or a Buddhist technique? Is this guy really a human? Nohachi's brain was not enough to process it. He thought that even though his 100,008 banners iron cavalry were still here, it would be as easy as taking something out of his pocket if this human wanted to kill him. It could even be said that it was not impossible for this human to defeat his 100,008 banners iron cavalry alone. In the end, the divine bird will definitely win, Nohachi secretly said in his heart. Just by looking at Jofeng's phoenix-like appearance, Nohachi felt that the winner would definitely be Jofeng. This was also the reason why he had betrayed Guhan just now. At the same time, he could imagine that because of his betrayal just now, Guhan had to fight with Jofeng. In the end, if Guhan won the battle, then he would definitely be dead. So Nohachi kept thinking that Jofeng would win the final victory in his heart. But this time, Nohachi was completely disappointed. In just a minute or two, the battle was over. Jofeng, who was as brave and invincible as a phoenix, fell to the ground, with dozens of deep bloody holes in her body. You will regret this. Ju Feng, who was on his last breath, said unwillingly before his body turned into a pool of blood. According to past experience, this pool of blood should immediately merge into the soil and then return to Zhu Wu's blood essence. However, although Jofeng's body turned into a pool of blood this time, it could not merge into the ground. Instead, it spontaneously condensed in the middle and finally turned into a pure black blood bead that floated on the ground. Yes, the mysterious underworld Zhu Wu's blood essence has already been surrounded by the emperor blood and has lost direct contact with the ground. As the Xianming tribe's Grand Wizard, Jiufeng can no longer return to Zhu Wu's blood essence to revive, so she can only condense herself into a blood bead in the end. Guhan said happily as he looked at this blood bead. This meant that what he had trapped in the test tube was indeed the Xianming tribe's Zhu Wu's blood essence. Grand Wizard Jiufeng had also lost her ability to revive indefinitely and could only condense herself into a blood bead in the end. Unless Jiufeng's blood bead could eventually return to Zhu Wu's blood essence, Grand Wizard Jiufeng would never be able to revive. Jiufeng's blood bead was not like Zhu Wu's blood essence, which could only be absorbed by a test tube filled with emperor blood. An ordinary test tube directly absorbed Jiufeng's blood bead, and then Guhan placed it deep into his dimensional pocket. This also completely announced that Grand Wizard Jiufeng had cut off all contact with this world and could no longer be revived as a threat to humanity. Kill me if you want. I have already died once. I am not afraid of dying again. Seeing that Guhan had finished dealing with Jiufeng, Nurhasai knew that he was finished. Guhan would definitely not let him off for betraying him. At this moment, Nurhasai could only pray that Guhan would be merciful and stab him to death with a sword instead of using cruel methods such as cutting his skin, pulling out his tendons, tearing his body apart, or chopping him into minced meat, because this was how Nurhasai dealt with his enemies. Why did you betray me just now? Guhan was not in a hurry to kill Nurhasai. Instead, he asked curiously. Logically speaking, we are the same kind. Why did you help a bird to harm me? Is there a need to say more? You, human, dared to threaten me just now. Of course, I want to avenge you. Besides, if I help the Phoenix see through your plot, the Phoenix will definitely be grateful to me. Maybe it can send me safely back to the descendants of the great Jin dynasty. At that time, my guardian bird will help the great Jin dynasty to conquer the world again. At that time, I will still be the emperor of the 9 state. Because he knew that he could not live, Nurhasai did not hide anything. He directly told Liu Liang all his thoughts. Guhan did not know how to evaluate the founding emperor of the great Jin dynasty. At this time, he still wanted to unify the world and become the emperor of the 9 states. In a way, this was also a very praiseworthy thing. What Nurhasai never expected was that in the end, Guhan did not kill him. Instead, he left him aside and was busy putting the woman into the glass coffin. Could it be that Guhan's woman was already dead and he was now planning to bury her? Nurhasai thought inexplicably. Chapter 1035. Where am I? Liuyan Ling slowly opened her eyes and realized that she was in the medical bay. Memories from before she fainted kept surfacing in her mind. Only then did she slowly recall, by the way, I was captured by the Wu people. Liuyan Ling could not help but feel heartbroken at the thought of this. She was the only member of the Liuyan family who had been captured by the Wu people. This time, she had completely embarrassed the Liuyan family. But why am I in the medical bay? Could it be that the amulet has been activated? Oh no, doesn't that mean that the entire Shanhai Pass is going to? Liuyan Ling did not dare to think further. She immediately reached out to touch the amulet around her neck and immediately heaved a sigh of relief. Great, the amulet is still here. However, Liuyan Ling was immediately puzzled. Since the amulet was not activated, how did she get sent into the medical bay? Could it be that he saved me? Liuyan Ling recalled a figure that she missed. In the 2 months before she was captured, Liuyan Ling had contacted Guhan several times, trying to find him to resolve the misunderstanding in Guanghui Amusement Park. However, Guhan did not reply to Liuyan Ling at all. This made Liuyan Ling feel quite sad and sad. She could not help but curl up in her bed and cry secretly many nights. Liuyan Ling thought that Guhan would never forgive her in this lifetime. However, Liuyan Ling did not know that Guhan had been in the game for the past 2 months. Occasionally, he would come out of the game to deal with some urgent daily affairs. After that, he would immediately return to the game to receive training from Kunzu. How could he find time to meet Liuyan Ling? In fact, Gu Han did not blame Liuyan Ling from the beginning to the end. The mistake was caused by Kunzu. It had nothing to do with Liuyan Ling. While Liuyan Ling was letting her imagination run wild, the medical bay's lid suddenly opened by itself. Then, she heard a familiar voice. "Miss Ling, when are you going to stop sleeping? It's time to wake up." "Got it. It's just that my body is a little numb." Liuyan Ling climbed out of the medical bay with a blushing face. She saw Gu Han looking at her with a smile that did not seem like a smile. Immediately, Liuyan Ling, who was filled with shyness and joy, felt a sweetness in her heart. It was still he who would save her without hesitation when she was in danger. It was just like in the dream back then. "Thank you," Liuyan Ling said to Gu Han. "No need to thank me. With our relationship, is there still a need to say thank you?" Lung Qingqiu patted Liuyan Ling's shoulder, looking like a good brother. Such an attitude made Liuyan Ling feel both happy and melancholic at the same time. He was happy because Ji Yuhan no longer bore a grudge against Lung Qingqiu for what happened in the Radiant Paradise. He was depressed because of Lung Qingqiu's brotherly attitude towards him. At this moment, Fleeting Time's heart suddenly surged with an impulse to not be brothers with Lung Qingqiu anymore. Of course, Liuyan Ling only thought like this. She didn't have the courage to really say it out loud. "Where is this place? Why does it seem like a tomb?" In order to ease her embarrassment, Liuyan Ling looked at the surrounding environment and asked casually. "You're right. This is indeed a tomb." Liuyan Ling didn't think that she would hit the nail on the head. This really was a tomb. Then who is this Yuan Ku? Liuyan Ling saw Nurhasai at the same time. Originally, Liuyan Ling had always killed Yuan Ku when she saw him, but thinking that since Gu Han let this Yuan Ku stand here, it must be a reason not to kill him, so she didn't do it again. Nurhasai didn't know that he had escaped a disaster. It must be known that if Liuyan Ling wanted to kill him, the speed at which she killed him was not much slower than stepping on an ant under her feet. "I am the great Jin dynasty's great ancestor Nurhasai. You little girl see me. Ignore him, just pretend that he doesn't exist." Before Nurhasai could finish his words, he was directly rebutted by Gu Han. Nurhasai was so angry that he really wanted to take out his knife and cut Gu Han in half. Liuyan Ling still wanted to say something more to Gu Han, but at this time, she heard an electronic beep. Only then did Liuyan Ling realize that there was actually a medical pod here. And this beep was the sound of another medical pod after it had finished its work. "Sir Yaoguang, you are here too." When Yaoguang stood up from the medical pod, Liuyan Ling said in surprise. She didn't expect that the other medical pod contained the Taiyin garrison's guardian Yaoguang. "Miss Ling, why are you here? It's great that you are fine. I was really worried that something would happen to you in the hands of the Wu people." "Forget it, these are not important anymore," Yaoguang said with great joy when he saw Liuyan Ling appear in front of him. "Gu Han, you are here too? What exactly happened here? Why am I here? And why are you here?" When Yaoguang saw Gu Han, he immediately poured out all his questions. Here's what happened. Gu Han briefly told Yaoguang and Liuyan Ling what happened after Liuyan Ling was captured. The two of them instantly fell into a huge shock. "I didn't expect so many things to happen after I was poisoned. I didn't expect the Wu people to launch a surprise attack on the Taiyin garrison, and I didn't expect Yi Fan to be a traitor. I really can't imagine how terrible the human race's situation would be if all this had happened." Yaoguang patted Gu Han's shoulder emotionally. "Fortunately, I didn't misjudge you. Gu Han, you are indeed the person who can save the entire human race." Fleeting Time's face was filled with joy as he looked at Ji Yuhan. "The person I like is the best." Yep, that was the feeling. It's not that simple. Gu Han smiled and took out the test tube containing Zhu Wu's blood essence. "Thanks to you, Yaoguang, we also found the place where the Wu people had hidden Zhu Wu's blood essence for hundreds of years and obtained the Xianming tribe's blood essence. From now on, the Wu people will no longer have 12 great sorcerers. They will forever have one less great sorcerer. The 12 Wu people's tribes will also forever lack one, and the Xianming tribe will forever be removed from the Shanhai Pass. This is the Xianming tribe's Zhu Wu blood essence. Yao Guang and Liuyan Ling looked at the drop of Zhu Wu's blood essence in the test tube, which was struggling with the Emperor's blood. All sorts of feelings welled up in their hearts. Because of this drop of Zhu Wu's blood essence, countless heroes of the human race had died at the hands of the Shenming tribe, which had been nurtured by this drop of Zhu Wu's blood essence. Gu Han, Gu Han. Yao Guang couldn't help but sigh. I don't even know how to evaluate your contribution this time. Even if I gave you 10 million hero coins, it wouldn't even amount to 1/10 of your contribution. The Shanghai Pass reward and punishment regulations have never recorded the rewards for completely destroying a Wu people's tribe. Looks like this matter will have to be handed over to the Sword Commission. It's time to give them a headache. If they can't give me a satisfactory reward, I will throw this Zhu Wu's blood essence to the dogs and see if I can cultivate a heavenly dog tribe. Gu Han was joking. Of course, he wouldn't feed Zhu Wu's blood essence to the dogs, let alone cultivate a heavenly dog tribe. Wouldn't that be asking for trouble for the human race? In that case, Gu Han, we should go back. Otherwise, there will be big problems without you at the Taiyin garrison. Yao Guang sighed. Also, I should pass the position of Lunar Guardian to you. I really don't have the right to sit in that position anymore. There's no hurry to go back. Gu Han shook his head. We have only obtained 1 drop of Zhu Wu's blood essence. There are still 11 drops of Zhu Wu's blood essence, which is equivalent to weakening 1/12 of the Wu people's strength. Now, while all the great sorcerers are dead and unable to protect Zhu Wu's blood essence, we can take away the rest of Zhu Wu's blood essence. This way, Shanghai Pass can be completely restored to peace, and we can be considered to have made a great contribution to the human race. That makes sense. Yao Guang nodded. But do you know where the rest of Zhu Wu's blood essence is hidden? That's simple. Since the Shenming tribe's Zhu Wu's blood essence is hidden in the Qing dynasty's Taizu Nahachi's underground palace, it can be predicted that the rest of Zhu Wu's blood essence must be hidden in the underground palace of the other Qing dynasty emperors. We just need to find the underground palace of those tombs, and we might be able to find the rest of Zhu Wu's blood essence. Gu Han smiled. Good idea. The rest of Zhu Wu's blood essence must be hidden there. This is a golden opportunity, we can't miss it. Yao Guang immediately said excitedly. Liuyan Ling also nodded. However, Nahachi, who was watching all this from a corner, felt very uncomfortable. He was actually watching a group of people discuss digging up his own descendant's grave. This feeling was really indescribable. Nahachi really wanted to stop Gu Han and the others from going overboard, but he could not help but tremble when he recalled the battle between Gu Han and Jiufeng. He could not say a word. Looks like we still have to leave this underground palace first. It will be more convenient to find the other tombs from the outside, Yao Guang said. That's not necessary. I just saw Jiufeng disappear from this underground palace, but after a while, she appeared with Ling's medical pod. Therefore, I suspect that this underground palace must have an entrance to the other underground palaces, or a teleportation array, or something like a void gate. Let's look around carefully. We will definitely be able to find the entrance to the next underground palace. Okay. No problem. Yao Guang and Liuyan Ling nodded. Therefore, the 3 of them split up to look for the next entrance. Unfortunately, Gu Han almost turned the entire underground palace upside down, but he still could not find the entrance. However, Yao Guang had an unexpected reward. When Yao Guang was searching, he accidentally found a small wall in the underground palace that was different from the other walls. The other walls were covered in dust, but this wall was clean, as if it had been cleaned frequently. There's the smell of Wu people's qi and blood on the wall. In the end, Yao Guang's research on the Wu people was more in-depth. He sniffed the wall and found that this wall actually had the smell of Wu people's qi and blood. It must be the Wu people's blood spell array. Yao Guang said happily. The Wu people must have drawn a blood spell array for teleportation on this wall. That's why Jiufeng disappeared in front of you in an instant. We just need to find a way to activate this blood spell array, then we can go to the next underground palace. But how do we activate the Wu people's blood spell array? Liuyan Ling said in distress. Not only does the Wu people's blood spell array need the qi and blood of a senior witch, it also needs the Wu people's witchcraft. It's impossible for us humans to activate this blood spell array. Chapter 1036. We have the blood essence of the Wu people. Guhan took out the blood pearl that Jiufeng had condensed. This is the blood essence of Jiufeng. It's perfect for opening the blood spell formation. Yes. But the blood pearl alone is not enough. Without the secret incantation of the Wu people, we still can't open the blood spell formation, Liuyan Ling said as she rubbed her head. This question had indeed stumped everyone present, including Ji Han. The Wu people's blood spell formation could only be opened by the Wu people's secret incantation. However, the Wu people's secret incantation was naturally the power that only the Wu people possessed. Even if Guhan's strength was increased by 1,000 or 10,000 times, he would not be able to open the blood spell formation. Guhan, I remember hearing a saying before. I'm not sure if it's true. Yao Guang said after hesitating for a while. Whether it's true or not, let's hear it first, Ji Han said. All right. I remember that the previous guardian of the Taiyin garrison was an expert in religious studies before he became a sword-bearer. He especially liked to study the shamanism of the Qing dynasty. After he came to Shanhai Pass, he realized that the shamanism of the Qing dynasty was actually similar to the witchcraft of the Wu people. The incantations, and the process of casting the spell were almost identical. Therefore, before the guardian of the Taiyin garrison left, he told me that he suspected the shamanism was actually an extension of the Wu people. As the shamanism was a country of the Qing dynasty, the entire royal family might be the blood of the Wu people. This is because only the Wu people can use the witchcraft of the Wu people. Only the Manchu people can become the priests of the shamanism and learn the various secret incantations of the shamanism. Yao Guang revealed a shocking secret. You're saying that the Aizen Joro clan might be the blood of the Wu people? Guhan's eyes lit up. That's right. We've had a lot of contact with the Wu people in Shanhai Pass, so we've more or less learned some of the Wu people's history. In the Antiquity era, after the Wu people were defeated by the Yellow Emperor Shenyuan, they took the initiative to intermarry with us humans, hiding the Wu people's bloodline in the human bloodline. This way, the human race can't truly kill the Wu people, giving the Wu people a chance to rise again. The great shaman of the Wu people, Fei Lian, was actually a physician of the Shang dynasty. If it wasn't for the destruction of the Shang dynasty by the Zhou dynasty, Fei Lian would not have revealed his true form as a great shaman. Later on, the Fei Lian clan was infested in the area of present-day Gansu and Shaanxi, and gradually developed into the most powerful country of the Warring States period, the Qin Kingdom. Later on, when the Qin state conquered the world, Emperor Qin Shi Huang Yingzheng, who carried the bloodline of the Wu people, became the human emperor of the human race. Yingzheng was a mixed blood of the human race and the Wu people, and the bloodline of the Wu people was even stronger than that of the human race. However, because of this, under the instigation of the human race, the Qin kingdom fell after a few decades. In order to ensure that the bloodline of the Qin kingdom would not be passed down, the human race killed all the bloodline of the Qin kingdom, and supported the pure-blooded Liu Bang to succeed the throne. However, the bloodline of the Wu people is still hidden among the human race, so it's not strange that the Manchu people are the inheritors of the Wu people's bloodline. The Wu people have never given up on the human emperor's position. At this point, Yao Guang finally finished. I understand what you mean. Ji Han nodded knowingly, and then looked at Nahachi, who was a little confused. It seems that I was right not to kill him. There is indeed some unexpected joy. Therefore, under Guhan's order, Nahachi reluctantly came to the side of Guhan and the other two. Let me ask you, are you a member of the Nuzhan clan, the bloodline of the Wu people? Guhan asked with a frown. What bloodline of the Wu people? Today is the first time I've heard of the name Wu people. The Nuzhan clan is the Nuzhan clan, and has nothing to do with that strange Wu people. Nahachi said with a look of disgust. Obviously, he was very proud of his clan. That's not strange. Ever since the Qin dynasty failed, the Wu people knew that they couldn't fight against the human race, so they had to hide their identity. In order to prevent their bloodline from being discovered, the Wu people didn't even tell their descendants about their bloodline identity. Only when all the descendants of the Wu people thought that they were real humans could this secret be completely protected. At this point, Yaoguang paused. So it's not strange that the Nuzhan people don't know that they are the Wu people. As long as they use the secret techniques of the shaman sect, they will know whether they are the Wu people or not. After saying that, Yaoguang turned to Nahachi and asked, "Do you know the secret techniques of the shaman sect?" "How could I know that kind of ghost god technique? Those are the things of the priests. I am the son of heaven. How could I learn these inferior ghost god techniques?" Nahachi said coldly. "Since you don't know, then kill him." Yaoguang sighed and said disappointedly, "That's right. I thought he would be of some use. Now it seems that we can just kill him." Guhan nodded and drew out his juicy sword, ready to kill Nahachi with one strike. Wait. Nahachi saw this and immediately panicked. He quickly said, "Although I don't know the secret techniques, I have seen the priests cast them. I can imitate them and maybe I can succeed." "What a joke. How can you use the secret techniques of the Wu people just by imitating others?" "I think we should just kill him," Fleeting Time Ling said disdainfully. As the successor of the Fleeting Time clan, he had access to a vast number of books in the Fleeting Time clan. He could be said to be the most knowledgeable about secret techniques among humans. She had never heard of a secret technique that could be imitated by imitating others without the mental cultivation method. This was too ridiculous. "It's fine. Let him try it. If he doesn't succeed, it won't be too late to kill him," Guhan said to Liunian Ling with a smile. However, this smile instantly made Nahachi shiver. In fact, Nahachi himself knew very well that the secret arts of shamanism were not something that could be learned by copying. He could only pray in his heart that the spirits of his ancestors would help him and help him through this disaster. Thus, after placing Jiufeng's blood bead on the wall engraved with the blood formation of the Wu people, our new shaman high priest Nahachi began to use the secret techniques of shamanism for the first time in his life. In Nurhasai's memory, when the shaman priests cast spells, they all danced in front of him like madmen, shaking their heads like lions' heads until Nurhasai's eyes were dazzled. The spell was cast, but in fact, Nurhasai still didn't remember anything. However, Nahachi never expected that he would need to use the secret techniques of shamanism that he had never cared about. The only thing Nahachi could do was to imitate the priests and dance like a madman. How could this be useful? Liunian Ling shook her head disdainfully. Even her dog looked better than Nahachi when it danced. What kind of secret technique of shamanism was this? But something magical happened. Just as Liunian Ling shook her head disdainfully, the formation on the wall began to emit a blood-red light. The thick wall instantly turned into something like a water film. As long as one took a step forward, he would be able to reach the world on the other side of the wall. "It's open. The door is open. My spell has succeeded. It turns out that the secret techniques of shamanism are real. I can also become the high priest of shamanism. I can also cast spells." Seeing this, Nahachi, who had been on tenterhooks, began to laugh loudly. The feeling of being reborn after a disaster was really great. The feeling of having spells was really great. "You go in first." Yaoguang was cautious. Although the portal had been opened, Yaoguang still did not feel at ease and let Nahachi in first. After finding that half of Nahachi's body was exposed this time, Yaoguang was the second to enter the other side of the portal. Guhan and Liunian Ling followed closely behind and entered the portal. On the other side of the portal was also an underground palace of a mausoleum, but the decoration of this underground palace was much more gorgeous than that of Nahachi's underground palace. There were only various kinds of carvings in Nahachi's underground palace. But this mausoleum was filled with all kinds of exquisite carvings, and was filled with all kinds of rare treasures. There were even skeletons in some corners. These skeletons seemed to be the skeletons of women. They did not look old, at most 20 or 30 years old before they died. They were dressed in clothes that were neither gorgeous nor shabby. It seemed that these pitiful women were funerary objects, meant to be buried with the dead emperor. "Who is it? Who is it? Hurry up and take me out, I'm going crazy here." Suddenly, a pleasantly surprised voice came from the other end of the underground palace. Soon after, another person wearing a dragon robe and a crown ran out. Looking at this person's appearance, he was actually 40% to 50% similar to Nurhaci. Obviously, this person should be Nurhaci's bloodline descendant. Aji. Is that you, Aji? Seeing this new emperor, Nurhaci instantly burst into tears and rushed up to hug the emperor. Father, why are you here? Didn't you already? Aji rubbed his eyes in disbelief. He could not believe that the person hugging him was his father. Obviously, this Aji was Nurhaci's successor, Qing Taizong Huang Taiji, Nurhaci's 8th son. It's a long story. Actually, Aji, did you also come back to life? Nurhaci hugged his son and cried. He never thought that he would be able to see his biological son after 1,300 years. Father, did you also come back to life? Huang Taiji was not stupid. He immediately guessed that he and his father had actually come back to life. That's interesting. A kind father and a filial son. Seeing this, Liuyan Ling mocked him without holding back. You little girl, how dare you speak rudely to me? I'm going to push you out of the Meridian Gate and behead you. Huang Taiji had never been trained by Guhan, so he still maintained the aura of an emperor. As soon as he opened his mouth, he wanted to push Liuyan Ling out of the Meridian Gate and behead her. Fortunately, Nurhaci, who had been trained by Ji Yuhan, was with him. He immediately grabbed Huang Taiji's hand and covered Huang Taiji's mouth, bowed to Ji Yuhan, and then took his son to hide in a corner far away, telling him what had happened to him. Chapter 1037. Things went very smoothly. Guhan successfully found the second drop of Zhu Wu's essence blood in the coffin in the underground palace of Huang Taiji's Jiao mausoleum. Next to this drop of essence blood was a bright red blood bead. Obviously, this blood bead belonged to a dead great wizard. Like Jiufeng, he had turned into a blood bead after his death. However, he successfully returned to the side of Zhu Wu's essence blood and began to absorb the essence of Zhu Wu's essence blood, preparing to be reborn again. Unfortunately, he was too unlucky to have met a freak like Guhan. Therefore, this great wizard's blood bead could only be stored away by Guhan, along with Zhu Wu's essence blood. From then on, he lost the chance to be reborn. Next, Guhan and the others once again spread out in the underground palace to look for a new blood formation. Finally, they easily found this blood formation in a corner. Then, under the humiliated gaze of Huang Taiji, Nurhaci began to dance the shamanic secret skill again. However, this time, Nurhaci did not succeed. No matter how hard he danced, he could not open this blood formation. Could it be that only the master of this mausoleum can open this blood formation by using a secret skill? Liuyan Ling put forward a very constructive suggestion. Therefore, under the pressure of the sword in Yao Guang's hand, Nurhaci had no choice but to randomly teach the shamanic secret skill he had just performed to Huang Taiji. After learning it a few times in great humiliation, Huang Taiji also began to dance crazily. However, no matter how you looked at it, Nurhaci and Huang Taiji were dancing two different dances. This was not the same shamanic secret skill at all. However, something miraculous happened. Huang Taiji's inexplicable dance actually opened the blood formation and opened the way to the next mausoleum. As Guhan expected, the other end of the blood formation was connected to the Qing Xiaoling mausoleum, which was the underground palace of Huang Taiji's son, Aizen Giorgio Luo Fulin. Similarly, Guhan also discovered Yuan Ku, Aizen Giorgio and Luo Fulin, who had just arrived in this world, in the underground palace of the Xiaoling mausoleum. It could be said that the trio of Nurhaci, grandfather and grandson had been gathered together. However, Fu Lin was not as excited as expected after meeting his father and grandfather. He just looked at Huang Taiji and Nurhaci timidly. His attitude was more of fear. This was not surprising. When Fu Lin ascended the throne, he was only 6 years old. He did not have much of an impression of his father, Huang Taiji. At that time, there were no photos, so Fu Lin naturally did not recognize his biological father. As for Huang Taiji, his thoughts were rather complicated. He had seen Fu Lin when he was young and liked him a lot. However, the problem was that Fu Lin was now a young man in his 40s. His appearance was very different from when he was young. Hence, Huang Taiji did not feel that there was anything intimate between them. What was even more strange was that Fu Lin's head was completely bald. If he was not wearing a yellow robe, Huang Taiji would really think that he was a monk. However, they were grandfather and grandson after all. After confirming each other's identities, they gradually became intimate. Then, Huang Taiji and Nahachi seized the time to ask Fu Lin what had happened when he was the emperor. After hearing Fu Lin say that he had completely destroyed the southern Ming dynasty, killed all the emperors of the Ming dynasty, and truly unified the whole Central Plains, Huang Taiji and Nahachi were so happy that they danced with joy. Soon, Huang Taiji and Nahachi began to wonder why Fu Lin was bald. They wondered if he had lost his hair or something. Fu Lin could not say anything. Instead, it was Liuyan Ling who added, "I heard that he became a monk in the end. I don't know if he died in the temple." Huang Taiji and Nahachi immediately stared at Fu Lin sternly. Fu Lin had no choice but to tell them his scandal. It turned out that after concubine Donggo's death, Fu Lin lost all hope and went to Mount Wutai to become a monk. In the end, he died on Mount Wutai, but his body was transported back to the Xiaoling mausoleum for burial. Huang Taiji and Nahachi were so angry that they immediately kicked Fu Lin's butt. They cursed, "How could the Aizen Joro family have such a useless person like you? How could you become a monk for a little woman? You're the most useless of all." Being scolded by his father and grandfather, Fu Lin did not even dare to raise his head. He could only shrink in the corner and shiver. On the other side, Gu Han and the other two had also successfully found Zhu Wu's essence blood beads, and the blood formation of the next mausoleum in Fu Lin's mausoleum. This time, Gu Han still let Nahachi try to use the shamanic secret technique first, then let Huang Taiji do it. In the end, both of them could not open the blood formation in the Xiaoling mausoleum. Sure enough, in the end, Fu Lin had to use the shaman secret technique. However, there was an interlude in the middle. That was, Fu Lin refused to use the shaman secret technique or perform the shaman dance. Fu Lin was willing to abandon his status to become a monk. Obviously, Fu Lin was a very devout monk. As a devout monk, Fu Lin would certainly not dance the shamanic dance. It would blaspheme his Buddha. Even when Yao Guang put his sword on Fu Lin's neck, Fu Lin refused. Yao Guang used Huang Taiji and Nahachi to threaten Fu Lin. In the end, Fu Lin said that ashes to ashes, dust to dust. The dead should die, and living in this world would only mess up the rules of the world. He was willing to accompany his father and grandfather back to the place where they should be. Now, even Yao Guang felt that it was a little tricky. Fortunately, at the critical moment, Liuyan Ling had an idea. She insisted that if Fu Lin did not dance, then she would drag concubine Donggo's body out of the coffin and throw it outside to feed the wild dogs. As a result, Fu Lin, who had just said that ashes to dust, immediately gave in. As a result, Huang Taiji and Nahachi were so angry that they joined forces to beat this unfilial grandson half to death. Fu Lin's Xiaoling mausoleum was naturally connected to Aizen Joro Xuanye's Jingling mausoleum. Gu Han and the others also met Aizen Joro Xuanye, who had just come to this world. However, this great-grandson looked much older than his father, grandfather, and great-grandfather. With white hair and a beard, Xian Yi looked more like the ancestor of these three people. Xian Yi recognized his father. After all, Xian Yi often secretly went to Mount Wutai to visit his father, so he recognized Fu Lin at a glance. Then he bowed to his father, grandfather, and great-grandfather respectively, and quickly accepted all the facts. He was very happy and took the initiative to perform the shamanic secret techniques for Gu Han. During the whole process, he had a smile on his face, without a trace of displeasure. What surprised Gu Han even more was that Xian Yi's dancing level was much higher than that of the other three, and he did not need Nahachi to teach him the inexplicable shamanic secret techniques at all. Xian Yi naturally jumped out and performed the standard shamanic secret techniques himself. Later, after asking, he learned that before his death, Xian Yi had gathered many masters of Taoism, Buddhism, shamanism, and Lamaism to perform some life-prolonging magic for him. Even Xian Yi himself had learned many so-called secret techniques, including the shamanic secret techniques. Unfortunately, It was of no use. When it was time to die, he still had to die. However, the secret techniques he learned were very authentic, far surpassing those of his ancestors. This is a powerful person. He looks like an emperor. Xian Yi maintained a smile no matter what happened. At the same time, his body was straight, and a king's aura emanated from his body. From this, it could be seen that Xian Yi could be an emperor for 60 years not only because of his long life, but also because of many other factors. There was nothing much to say about what happened next. It was nothing more than the process of a son meeting his father, grandfather, and great-grandfather. Of course, there were some interludes. For example, Yongzheng's skeleton was headless, and Qianlong's skeleton was placed messily in the coffin. All the skeletons were not connected, but pieced together. Some bones were even the size of grains of sand. Qianlong's skull was broken into 2 halves, and most of his jaw was smashed. Therefore, when Emperor Qianlong saw his skeleton in this state, he immediately began to cry. According to Liuanian Ling, after the fall of the Qing dynasty, a guy named Sun Dianying dug up all their mausoleums, robbed all the treasures in the mausoleums, and smashed all the bones into pieces. This old man never expected that he would die so miserably, and even his skeleton was broken into this state. However, what comforted Qianlong was that the skeletons of the emperors after him were not so good, which made this old man feel much better. However, it was inevitable that he would criticize his descendants. Especially when he heard that the last emperor of the Qing dynasty was forced to abdicate by a powerful minister, he began to scold the minister for being ungrateful. But when Qianlong heard that there had been no more dynasties in Huaxia since the Qing dynasty, and that the Qing dynasty was the last dynasty in Huaxia, he began to feel complacent again. The last dynasty in the world could be regarded as the only glory in Huaxia. How could other dynasties enjoy this glory? Anyway, Qianlong's behavior disgusted Guhan and the other 2. But in order to let these emperors help him open the next blood formation, he could only tolerate these emperors with all kinds of tricks. When Guhan's team arrived at Chongling of the Qing dynasty, there were as many as 11 emperors of the Qing dynasty behind them. At this time, there were old emperors and young emperors. The oldest one was Emperor Qianlong, who lived for 89 years. He was the oldest emperor among them. The youngest emperor was Emperor Tongzhi, who only lived for 19 years before he died. But when they heard that this descendant died of venereal disease, his ancestors all showed expressions of sympathy. It seemed that there was a secret that could not be revealed. In short, when Guhan and the other 2 arrived, 11 of the 12 drops of Zhu Wu's blood essence had fallen into Guhan's hands. These 11 drops of Zhu Wu's blood essence all had matching Great Witch blood beads. Among the 12 Great Witches, Chang Yi of the Hutu tribe was still alive. Obviously, the last drop was the Hutu tribe's Zhu Wu's blood essence. But strangely, no matter how the unlucky Emperor Guangxu danced in front of the blood formation, there was no reaction. It was as if the other end of the blood formation had already been closed. Just as everyone was puzzled by this, the Guangxu emperor suddenly said weakly, "Before you came here, I had a conversation with an ugly woman. But she suddenly told me that something big had happened and that she had to close the blood formation on the other end. That ugly woman must have been Chang Yi." Yao Guang immediately reacted. She must have discovered that the other blood formation had been activated and knew that there was a problem with Zhu Wu's blood essence. So she closed the blood formation on the other end so that this blood formation could not be opened. You're saying that this thing is called the blood formation? Guangxu hesitated for a moment. When I was imprisoned in the Summer Palace, I often chatted with the shaman's high priest. He once told me that the shaman's blood formation was the shaman's most powerful secret technique. It had the ability to bring the dead back to life and destroy the heavens and earth. However, there are no shamans who have the ability to reactivate the blood formation. Only by finding as much Zhu Wu's blood essence as possible can we forcibly activate the blood formation's power. You're saying that Zhu Wu's blood essence can forcibly activate the blood formation's power. Yao Guang immediately became excited. Guhan, hurry and give me Zhu Wu's blood essence. I want to see if I can activate the blood formation. Chapter 1038. Yao Guang, why don't you rest this time? Previously, You were the one who used the blood beads to activate the blood spell formation. Let me do it. Guhan smiled at Yaoguang. Then, he walked up to the blood spell formation and took out a test tube containing Zhu Wu's blood essence. Then, he opened the lid and let the blood essence float out, placing it directly on the blood spell formation. As expected, with the appearance of Zhu Wu's blood essence, the blood spell formation that hadn't reacted no matter how Guangxu danced finally flashed with a blood-red light. It was clearly showing signs of being activated. However, this blood-red light was much dimmer than the other blood spell formations. Aside from the light, the blood spell formation didn't have any other reaction. The entire blood spell formation was in an incomplete state of activation. It seems that this is the power of one drop of Zhu Wu's blood essence. However, Guhan, add another drop of Zhu Wu's blood essence and try it out, Yaoguang hurriedly said. Guhan nodded and took out another test tube containing Zhu Wu's blood essence. Then, he placed the Zhu Wu's blood essence on the blood spell formation. As expected, with the appearance of the second drop of Zhu Wu's blood essence, the blood spell formation became much brighter. Unfortunately, it was still quite a distance away from the brightness required to truly activate it. And so, the third drop, the fourth drop, the fifth drop. More and more Zhu Wu's blood essence were placed on the blood spell formation by Guhan. The blood spell formation's light grew brighter and brighter. When Guhan placed the 10th drop of Zhu Wu's blood essence on the blood spell formation, the blood spell formation's light was infinitely close to the previous blood spell formation's light. Right now, only one more drop of Zhu Wu's blood essence would be needed for the blood spell formation to be completely activated. Guhan and the others would then be able to successfully reach the tomb of the last Qing dynasty emperor, Emperor Xiantong. But when they reached this place, Guhan's hand suddenly stopped. He no longer placed the 11th drop of Zhu Wu's blood essence on the blood spell formation. Guhan, what's wrong? Why did you stop? Isn't the blood array about to be activated? Liuyan Ling noticed that Guhan had stopped, so she asked curiously. I'm thinking, if I take out the 11th drop of Zhu Wu's blood essence, will someone behind me suddenly attack me? Guhan's words were as cold as a sickle, scraping the hearts of everyone present. In the next second, Guhan suddenly pulled out his juicy sword without hesitation, and with a twist, he directly stabbed at Yaoguang who was standing behind him. At the same time, the Big Dipper sword in Yaoguang's hand was about to reach the center of Guhan's back. If Guhan had been a step slower, the Big Dipper sword would have directly pierced through him. Come back. Guhan brushed aside the Big Dipper sword with his sword, and picked up 10 test tubes with his other hand at the same time, and covered the 10 drops of Zhu Wu's blood essence on the blood spell formation. Don't even think about it. Yaoguang let out an angry voice, and at the same time, reached out his big hand to grab the 10 drops of Zhu Wu's blood essence. However, in the end, it still reached Guhan's step, and the Zhu Wu's blood essence once again returned to Guhan's hand. What are you guys doing? Liuyan Ling looked at Guhan and Yaoguang with a dumbfounded expression. She could not understand why Yaoguang and Guhan, who were like biological brothers just now, would suddenly fight at this time. Whether it was Guhan's sword just now or Yaoguang's sword, they were all moves that directly attacked the opponent's vital points. If this sword really stabbed into the opponent, even if the opponent did not die, it would at least be half dead. This was completely a move that two enemies of life and death would use. How long do you want to keep up the act? Guhan held the sword and stood opposite of Yaoguang. Should I call you Yaoguang? Or should I call you Yingzheng? Yingzheng. Yingzheng. Everyone present was shocked, and among them, the 11 emperors of the Qing dynasty were the most shocked. As the emperors of a generation, they naturally admired the first emperor in the world, Qin Shi Huang Yingzheng. Many of them worshipped Qin Shi Huang as their lifelong idol. They never expected that the fierce man who kept forcing them with a sword was actually the legendary Qin Shi Huang. What nonsense are you talking about, Guhan? Yaoguang is a human. How could he be Qin Shi Huang? Liuyan Ling said in disbelief. Since you have seen through me, there is no need for me to continue the act. Miss Linlin is right. I am the one and only supreme ruler since the creation of the world. I am the first Emperor Yingzheng who has dominated the world. Yaoguang. Oh, no. Yingzheng. He glanced at the 11 emperors of the Qing dynasty beside him and said disdainfully, "How dare these useless things call themselves emperors? How ridiculous! What nonsense are you talking about, Yingzheng? Your Qin dynasty has been destroyed for more than 2,000 years, and your descendants have only lasted for 2 generations. Oh, I forgot, there is also that poor child. Including him, it has only lasted for 3 generations. You are still thinking about the 2nd Qin dynasty, the 3rd Qin dynasty, and even the thousands of generations after that. How ridiculous! You are just relying on the prestige of your ancestors. Without the unremitting efforts of Duke Xiao of Qin, King Huiwen of Qin, and King Zhaoxiang of Qin, how could your Qin dynasty have unified the 6 states?" Hearing Yingzheng's disdain towards him, Nahachi was instantly enraged. He did not care about the threat of death and directly retorted. "Look at me, when I started the war, I only had 13 sets of armors. When I was down and out, I had to be Li Chengliang's attendant, so I was lucky enough to survive. This is what it means to start from scratch and build this magnificent Qing dynasty. You are just a 2nd generation who relied on the virtue of your ancestors. How can you be compared with me?" Nahachi's words excited his descendants. Yes, Qin Shi Huang was just relying on the virtue of his ancestors. Their Qing dynasty was built with 1 sword and 1 spear. Qin Shi Huang could not be compared with their ancestor Nahachi. Ignorant. In the face of Nahachi's rebuttal, Yingzheng showed even more disdain. "Nahachi, how do you, a descendant of the Dejiang tribe, become the human emperor of the 9 regions? Did you really rely on your own ability? Back then, if it wasn't for the fact that our Magi tribe chose a pawn like you to be the new human emperor and secretly sent the Magi tribe's heaven Magi to take care of you and turn you into a wild wolf to feed you wolf milk when you were still a baby, you would have starved to death on the 3rd day of your life. And we secretly sent people to spread all this. Otherwise, how could the rumor that you were raised by the heavenly wolf spread so quickly throughout the whole Liaodong? If we hadn't secretly asked your stepmother, Nola, to abuse you with all her strength, how could you cultivate your firm character? If we didn't secretly send someone to pretend to be a Han storyteller, telling you stories about the 3 kingdoms, the water margin, and the legend of the heroes of the Sui and Tang dynasties, as well as the plots contained in the stories, how could you have learned so many plots and schemes? There is only one such storyteller in the whole Liaodong. Do you really think you are lucky to meet him? And Li Chengliang, how many tricks did we secretly use to make Li Chengliang adopt you as his son, and train you to be his spokesperson in the Jurchen tribe? Otherwise, how could you return to the Jurchen tribe and take over your father's family business? And the bloody battle between you and the other Jurchen tribes, if we hadn't secretly sent 13 heavenly witches to transform into 13 knights to help you fight, how could you raise an army with 13 sets of armors, defeat the strong and powerful Nikan Waylan, and even gain the support of so many Jurchen tribes? And in the Ming dynasty, if it wasn't because our only remaining great witch sacrificed her life in exchange for all kinds of natural disasters in the Ming dynasty for a whole 23 years, which led to incessant peasant uprisings within the Ming dynasty, the bandits scourged the entire Central Plains and the south, exhausting the Ming dynasty and losing all its powerful soldiers. How could the mighty Ming dynasty be defeated by you, a little Jurchen from the Jianzhou? And that Donglin party, if it wasn't because we secretly contacted them and took the opportunity to attack Emperor Tianqi, how could Wei Zhongxian lose his power? How could that Donglin party support Emperor Tianqi's younger brother, Emperor Chongzhen, that good-for-nothing? Finally, let's talk about Li Zicheng. Although he is also one of the future emperors chosen by destiny, if we hadn't sent countless Wu humans to join his army, Li Zicheng would have been mistaken by the human Shenyuan clan as the human emperor that the Wu tribe was preparing to cultivate. As a result, all the power of the Shenyuan clan was used to attack Li Zicheng. That would have given you the opportunity to develop and grow stronger outside the pass. And finally, at the most critical moment, you made all the soldiers of the Wu people who joined Li Zicheng's army turn against you. In the Battle of Shanhai Pass, how could a mere 100,000 of you defeat Li Zicheng's army of 300,000? So, do you understand now? Ying Zheng spun around abruptly, fixing his eyes on Nahachi, who was sweating profusely as he listened, and said, "The reason why you could ascend to the throne of the human emperor is all because of the secret planning of us, the Wu people, and the other tribes. Even a fool can ascend to the supreme throne with our ingenious planning. Whether your name is Nahachi, Nahachi, or Nahachi, you can easily sit on that throne. Ying Zheng's words made Nahachi and the other emperors of the Qing dynasty sweat profusely, and each of them felt very guilty. When these emperors grew up, they had also been curious about how the Jurchen clan could occupy the Central Plains, which had a population of hundreds of millions, with only 200,000 people, and become the human emperor of the Central Plains. They themselves also felt that the whole process was very unreal, as if there was a hand in the heaven helping the Jurchen clan to get through each tribulation and move forward step by step. Of course, they could not figure out the real answer, and could only secretly think that it was the heaven's blessing, the symbol of the heaven's will, and they were the human emperors chosen by the heaven. Only now, after listening to Ying Zheng's words, did they understand that it was not the heaven that was helping them, but the power of the entire Wu people that was secretly pushing them forward. Ling, what I said just now is very important. You have to write it down. As long as you publicize it, we might be able to get the Kunzu History Prize. Gu Han, who was listening at the side, said to Liunian Ling with great interest. Indeed, what Ying Zheng said was very important to the human beings after the cultural disruption. It could fill in dozens of gaps in history, solve dozens of unsolved mysteries, and put an end to the debate of whether Emperor Chongzhen was the son of Emperor Tianqi or the brother of Emperor Tianqi, which had been debated by countless historians for 500 years. Chapter 1039. Nahachi and Huang Taiji, the two founding emperors of the Great Qing dynasty, who boasted that they had overturned the entire Ming dynasty with their own strength, had their entire outlook on life shattered by the secret revealed by Ying Zheng. Because of that, they began to have strong doubts about what they had experienced in the past. The rest of the ignorant emperors slowly retreated to a corner of the underground palace under the lead of Xian Yi, who claimed to be the most famous emperor of the Qing dynasty. This 70-year-old old man had already sensed that the two inhuman experts seemed to be brewing an earth-shattering battle. Ordinary humans with no ability like him had better stay as far away from them as possible, lest they get caught up in the crossfire. How satisfying. It's been a long time since I've spoken the truth so happily. After reprimanding Nurhasai, Ying Zheng pulled his collar comfortably, looked at Guhan calmly, and said with a smile, "We're not in a hurry to fight. You don't know how uncomfortable it's been for me to be alone for so many years. I really want to find someone to tell all my secrets to. Now that this is a good opportunity, why don't we have a good chat? Are you trying to buy time?" Wu Qi rubbed his nose. Now, all 11 drops of ancestral sorcerer's blood essence were in his hands, and the blood pearls of grand sorcerers were also in his hands. Even if this Ying Zheng was stalling for time, what exactly was he waiting for? Don't think too much. I just want to find someone to talk to. Time is not necessary for me. Otherwise, if I didn't activate those blood formations, I'm afraid you would still be in the underground palace at the beginning, and wouldn't be able to come here. Am I right? Ying Zheng said with a smile. What do you think? Guhan did not answer Ying Zheng directly, but turned to Liunian Ling and asked. You ask me, don't ask me, my head is a mess now. What exactly happened here? I can't figure out a single thing, Liunian Ling said, knocking her head in annoyance. At this moment, Liunian Ling's brain was not enough to process it. Then let's talk. Guhan nodded, then looked at Ying Zheng. What secrets do you want to tell me? Sigh. But to his surprise, Ying Zheng did not answer Guhan's question directly. Instead, he shook his head and said, although it is a necessary duty for me, the great demon king, to explain the ins and outs of the matter, but if I answer your question, won't I be at a disadvantage? Why don't you ask me a question, and I ask you a question, and we both have to answer truthfully? There's no need for that. I don't have time to play quiz games with you. Guhan's face turned cold. Guhan had no intention of revealing his secrets. Hey, why don't you get it? Secrets are meant to be shared with everyone. Why don't we do this? You ask me 2 questions, and I'll only ask you 1 question. This way, you'll make a fortune, won't you? Guhan ignored Ying Zheng. Sigh, what a pity. It seems like someone doesn't even want to know where Artoria is, Nor does he want to know how Jiyu Xuanwu is doing. What a pity. Ying Zheng pursed his lips and said something that Guhan could not refuse. What did you say? Guhan was stunned and stared at Ying Zheng. You really know about Artoria and Jiyu Xuanwu? Why should I believe what you said? I'll take that as your first question. Ying Zheng smiled contentedly. Can you guess who was it that worked with Artoria to seal Gilgamesh, that golden guy, in the crack of the radiance? You mean to say that you and Artoria sealed Gilgamesh together? Guhan said in shock. He had heard the history of Radiant City from the inheritor of the Radiant capital. He knew that Gilgamesh was actually sealed in the Radiant amusement park by Artoria and another unknown Yuan Ku. But at that time, Guhan had no idea who sealed Gilgamesh with Artoria. Now, the mystery was revealed. It was Qin Shi Huang, Ying Zheng. By the way, do you want me to tell you the real relationship between you and Jiyu Xuanwu? Ying Zheng suddenly winked at Liuyan Ling. Obviously, Ying Zheng already knew that Jiyu Xuanwu was Guhan's biological daughter. That was why he winked at Liuyan Ling, asking Guhan if he should let Liuyan Ling know about this. No need, I believe what you said, Guhan said without thinking, which made Liuyan Ling anxious. She secretly pinched the soft flesh on Guhan's waist and asked Guhan fiercely, Tell me, what is your relationship with Jiyu Xuanwu? Could it be that you guys are a couple? Facing Liuyan Ling's anger, Guhan's expression did not change. He did not answer, which made Liuyan Ling want to bite Guhan. Then let me ask you, where is Artoria? What happened to Jiyu Xuanwu? Guhan asked Ying Zheng directly. TSK. These are two questions. You have already asked me one question, so I can only answer one of these two questions. After you answer my question, I will ask you the other question. After saying that, Ying Zheng suddenly threw out a large blood-red net towards the group of Qing dynasty emperors, who were huddled up in a far corner, but had their ears pricked up to eavesdrop on the conversation between Jiyu Han and the others. The blood-red net wrapped around all these emperors, then threw them to the ground like a bunch of roosters caught in a net. My secret is actually not for these irrelevant people to hear. With my net here, I guarantee that these people will not hear a single word, Ying Zheng said with a chuckle. He only pitied the trembling emperors trapped in the net. Then I will answer Artoria's question first. Actually, this isn't a secret among us high-level bandits. Artoria is currently trapped in the space-time tunnel of the Martyr's Palace. She's been trapped there for more than 300 years without food or water. Perhaps she's already a pile of bones. Oh, sorry, I forgot, we high-level bandits don't starve. I just hope that the 300 years of torture won't turn Artoria into a lunatic. Ying Zheng did not hesitate and directly told Guhan the answer that Guhan had been waiting for almost a year. It's actually the Spaceless Channel. Guhan had never heard of the strange name of the Spaceless Channel, but Liuyan Ling beside Guhan exclaimed in surprise. It was clear that Liuyan Ling knew about the Spaceless Channel. Ling, hurry up and tell me, what is this Spaceless Channel? Guhan immediately asked Liuyan Ling anxiously. I'm not too sure either, but our patriarch's drifting goblet Jendi once broke into the Martyr's Palace's headquarters and fought with the Yuan Ku there. He inadvertently heard some information about the Spaceless Channel. I heard that the Spaceless Channel is the most mysterious and unfathomable place in the Martyr's Palace. It connects all points of time from ancient times to the present, and the heroic spirits of the Martyr's Palace can appear in any era through the Spaceless Channel. For example, Qin Shi Huang can appear in the Han Dynasty, the Tang Dynasty, and the Ming Dynasty through the Spaceless Channel, but he can't appear in the Qin Dynasty. He can only appear between the time of his birth and the time of his death, fleeting time. Lin explained with great difficulty. That's right, Qin Shi Huang. Doesn't this mean that the Martyr's Palace can use the Spaceless Channel to travel through time at will? It can even change the past and the future. Jiyu Han was astonished. If the Martyr's Palace really had this kind of ability, then they could totally send the Martyr's Palace back to the time when the Sword Ancestor was born and use the Flood level and Desolate level Yuan bandits to kill the Sword Ancestor, who was only a famous sword rank back then, in the Hubei Province Museum. Without the Sword Ancestor, the human race would definitely perish. Guhan, you're overthinking things. That's just the martyr's palace bragging. If the spaceless channel could really be used, then why would they be beaten so badly by you humans? In fact, ever since the apocalypse, the spaceless channel has lost its original function. It's just a simple corridor now. At this point, Ying Zheng paused for a brief moment, and then continued in a playful tone. However, because time has no beginning and end, this corridor has no beginning and end as well. In the past, we could still leave the seamless passage by traveling through time and space. But now that the spaceless channel has become a simple corridor, there really is no exit. Even if a flood-grade and desolate-grade Yuan Ku enters there, he won't be able to find the exit of the spaceless channel. In the past 1,000 years, there has never been a case of a Yuan Ku or a human coming out of the spaceless channel. I'm afraid Artoria will never be able to come out. Is that true? Gu Han looked at Liuyan Ling with a questioning gaze. Liuyan Ling hesitated for a moment before nodding. Drifting Goblet Jendi did mention this in the information. Back then, he was almost tricked into the spaceless channel by the Martyr's Palace. If Drifting Goblet Jendi hadn't reacted at the last moment and forced out the secret of the spaceless channel, I'm afraid Drifting Goblet Jendi would have disappeared from the spaceless channel forever. Gu Han, listen to me. I really want to give you a piece of advice. After King Arthur entered the spaceless channel, it's impossible for him to escape. Don't be stupid and run into the spaceless channel. I can't. This world can't live without you. Humans can't live without you. Liuyan Ling could guess Gu Han's plan. She knew that Gu Han was thinking of entering the spaceless channel to save Artoria, so she immediately advised him, afraid that Gu Han would really run into the spaceless channel. Don't worry, I'm not that stupid. Gu Han replied to Liuyan Ling, but in his heart, he was thinking, no wonder Yi Qing desperately warned me not to try and save Artoria before I reached the immortal sword tier. So Artoria is hiding in this desperate situation that even Jendi can't escape from. I'm afraid this corridor formed by time is not something that can be broken through by humans. Am I really going to give up on saving Artoria just like that? No. Yi Qing told me that I can't save Artoria before I reach the immortal sword tier. Doesn't that mean that as long as I reach the immortal sword tier, I will have the right to save Artoria? Could it be that there is a way to escape from the spaceless channel in this world? Gu Han's mind was spinning rapidly, and he didn't notice that Ying Zheng was urging him from outside. I have answered your 2 questions. Gu Han, it's time for you to answer my question now. Chapter 1040. I'll have to thank the He Jade for that. Ying Zheng pointed out that this was the second question. Instead, he answered generously, the He Jade is a fragment of Dao ancestor Hongjuan's jade butterfly of fortune. It possesses an extremely magical power. Before I disappeared, I once patrolled the 9 provinces and absorbed the dragon veins into the jade butterfly of fortune. After that, I hid in the imperial mausoleum that I meticulously built. After 777 years of arduous cultivation, I finally attained immortality. Ask whatever you want to know. I really don't know where your interest comes from. Gu Han said helplessly. At the same time, he made up his mind that once he found out about the black tortoise's condition, he would immediately kill this damned Ying Zheng. It's just that the way I attained immortality is a little special. When I live to 100 years old, I can revert to the appearance of a baby overnight. After that, I can relive my life from a baby to an old man. Ying Zheng finally revealed all his secrets. According to what you said, Artoria is not Yuan Ku, Liu Bei and Lu Biyu are not Yuan Ku, and Misaka Mikoto and the others are not Yuan Ku. The blood flowing in their bodies is pure human blood. They are much stronger than you, a mixed blood of humans and witches. Liuyan Ling retorted. On the other hand, Ying Zheng had a shocked expression on his face when he heard Gu Han's question. He looked at Gu Han in disbelief and murmured, I've underestimated you. How can you even see through this? How did you see through it? Are you a human or Yuan Ku? The question that Gu Han asked puzzled Liuyan Ling. Was there even a need to ask such a question? Since Ying Zheng was a Wu people, then Ying Zheng must be Yuan Ku. Was there a need to ask such a question? Let me ask you, have you ever liked my sister? Ying Zheng's train of thought was indeed ingenious. Gu Han did not expect that the first question that Ying Zheng asked him would be such a question. Then how did you survive for 3,000 years? My Liu Nian family also has records of the Wu people. We know that the Wu people have existed before the Great Calamity, and they do indeed possess many miraculous powers. However, no matter how magical the Wu people are, they can't transcend the limitations of time. In fact, their lifespans are much shorter than ordinary people. They usually reach the end of their lifespans when they are 60 or 70 years old. How did you survive until now? Liuyan Ling murmured. This is the second question. Let's talk again after you answer my 2 questions. Gu Han used Ying Zheng's words to return the question. This is all Gu Han's credit. If it wasn't for Gu Han, your scheme would have succeeded long ago. Who knows, the Ju Tian star battle formation might have been breached by now. How dare you claim all the credit for it? Liuyan Ling said angrily. This could explain many inexplicable situations. For example, how Ying Zheng could disguise himself as Yao Guang and pass through layers and layers of strict detection equipment. Since Yao Guang was a child, no one had ever discovered that Ying Zheng was Yuan Ku. Liuyan Ling was so shocked by Ying Zheng's words that she took a step back. She never thought that the Ying Zheng in front of her was the Ying Zheng from 3,000 years ago. He was the Qin Shi Huang who had lived for 3,000 years, experienced the Han Dynasty, the Northern and Southern Jin Dynasty, the 5 Barbarians Rebellion, the Sui Dynasty, the Tang Dynasty, the 5 Dynasties and 10 Kingdoms, the Northern and Southern Song Dynasty, the Yuan Dynasty, the Ming Dynasty, the Qing Dynasty, the Fusang Invasion, the Celestial Dynasty, the Great Destruction Era, and the current 3,000 years. TSK, you just came from a 2-dimensional world. Countless 2-dimensional worlds have you, the Qin Shi Huang. Liuyan Ling wanted to ridicule Ying Zheng for coming here from a 2-dimensional world, and there were many 2-dimensional worlds that had Qin Shi Huang. Therefore, it was almost impossible for Yuan Ku to hide his true identity in front of human beings. But Ying Zheng was different. He was not a Yuan Ku who came here from another dimension. He was a very normal human being. Perhaps there was no human being under the heaven whose bloodline was purer than Ying Zheng's. If Ying Zheng was not a human being, then no one under the heaven could be called a human being. All my descendants have been killed by Xiong Yu and Liu Bang, and the Wu people from the Fei Lian clan are all dead. I, Ying Zheng, have nothing to do with the human beings in this world. So, why should I care about their lives? Ying Zheng sneered and said, but of course, the Wu people trapped in the Ju Tian star battle formation have nothing to do with me, and I have no reason to help them get out of here. I am not Yuan Ku, and I am a real human being. Ying Zheng gave an answer that Liuyan Ling found hard to believe, so much so that Liuyan Ling blurted out, that's impossible. You are Ying Zheng, you are the Wu people. How could you be a human being? You. Gu Han suddenly felt like he was being played. He really wanted to kill Ying Zheng immediately, but when he thought of the black tortoise, Gu Han had to retract his hand. Then, he asked his next question. The second question, since you are a real human being, you are naturally one with human beings. Why did you betray human beings and help the Wu people? Frowning, Gu Han asked, although you are a mixed blood of the Wu people and human beings, and you are also a grand wizard of the Wu people, in essence and principle, you are different from the Yuan Ku and Wu people in the Ju Tian star battle formation. But in terms of essence and principle, they are different from the Yuanko Wu tribe in the Great Cosmic Star formation. You are not the same kind of Wu tribe as them. Why do you want to help them? Do you want to see them break out of the Great Cosmic Star formation and kill all human beings? Aren't all the humans in the future your descendants? That's why you can enter a normal human family as a baby and become the brother and sister of Mingyu. Although Gu Han had guessed that Ying Zheng was the Ying Zheng from 3,000 years ago, he did not expect Ying Zheng to be immortal in this way. But at the same time, Gu Han breathed a sigh of relief. This meant that Yao Guang's sister, Mingyu, was different from Yao Guang. Mingyu was not the Wu people, so she was not a traitor to human beings. You mean Mingyu? Is she really your sister? Gu Han asked. No. Gu Han answered without thinking, which made Liuyan Ling relax her clenched fists. I treat her as an ordinary friend who has helped me a lot. That's the truth. Since Ming Yu has found her own home, I wish her happiness. Don't waste any more time on me. That's another question. You'd better answer mine first. Gu Han retorted stiffly. But at this point, Liuan Ling suddenly realized the mystery in Ying Zheng's words. She stammered, Could it be? Could it be? Are you really the first emperor from 3,000 years ago, Ying Zheng? No, they are Yuan Ku. They are indeed the real Yuan Ku, but I am not Yuan Ku. Ying Zheng's eyes widened. I am the supreme existence in the world. I am the first emperor of the human race. Do you understand? Ying Zheng was very sincere, like a child who was admitting his mistakes in front of his class teacher. Is this true? Are you saying this because of Miss Ling? Ying Zheng's face was full of disbelief. Then why did you do all these things? Fleeting Ling asked angrily upon hearing Yi Xi's words. What a joke. The Wu people have been imprisoned here for more than 100 years. If I wanted to save them, I had plenty of opportunities in these 100 years. Why did I wait until now to do it? Ying Zheng glared at Liuan Ling, then looked at Gu Han and said, You are a smart man. You should be able to see that I am not the same kind of person as the Wu people here. I don't want the Wu people here to escape. I have been playing with these ridiculous Yuan Ku from the beginning. What have I done? Isn't the Ju Tian Star battle formation still in good condition? Didn't the 12 great sorcerers all die in the hands of Gu Han? The Wu people are now severely injured. It is impossible for them to pose any threat to the Ju Tian Star battle formation. What are you dissatisfied with? Ying Zheng snorted coldly and said, This is all my credit. How dare you call me a traitor? Gu Han, I will not beat around the bush. As long as you give me the blood essence of Zhu Wu, I will immediately leave the Ju Tian Star battle formation and disappear from this world. As long as you, Gu Han, are still alive in this world, I will stay at home and be the good brother of Ming Yu, the good leader of Yaoguang sword sect, the good son of my parents, and the best swordsman of mankind. I will fight with Yuan Ku until the end for the sake of mankind. I swear that I will do what I say. Gu Han, believe me and give me the blood essence of Zhu Wu. Hearing Ying Zheng's question, Liuan Ling suddenly clenched her fists tightly. If Gu Han's answer was not what she wanted, her fists would eventually fall on Gu Han. This also explained why Ying Zheng could synchronize with Sword Lady. Ying Zheng was a real human, so of course he could synchronize with Sword Lady. Once Ying Zheng succeeded in synchronizing with Sword Lady, no one would suspect that Ying Zheng was a spy for the Wu people. Ask away. Ying Zheng shrugged his shoulders, then suddenly added, Oh right, let me add another rule. Only when I get tired of answering your questions, will I tell you about young Miss Jiyu Xuanwu. Otherwise, I will absolutely not answer your question. I didn't expect the bloodline of Fleeting Calendar to be so stupid. I even praised him for his intelligence. Ying Zheng snorted coldly and said, That's right. I'm not a Yuanko who came here from some two-dimensional world. I'm the first emperor, Ying Zheng, who unified the world 3,000 years ago. Of course, she is my good little sister. After all, we have been siblings for over 20 years. Ying Zheng smiled faintly and said, Although we are not real siblings, I've always treated her as my real sister. You don't know that my sister always talks about you with me behind my back. Although she has found a new boyfriend, I can tell that she has never let go of you. So, I want to ask you, have you ever liked my sister? Who said Ying Zheng is not a human? Isn't Ying Zheng the human emperor of the human race? Don't tell me that there is no human blood flowing in Ying Zheng's body. Ying Zheng said loudly. The reason why Yuan Ku's identity as Yuan Ku could be easily discovered by humans was because they were existences who came from another dimension. Therefore, the surface of their bodies would be wrapped by the power of the dimension. This was also the reason why Gu Han could clearly see their dimensional nodes. Chapter 1041. What does he mean? After listening to Ying Zheng's last words, Liuan Ling asked Gu Han in confusion. Don't you get it? The reason why he's willing to tell me so much, and even said that he can't hide the secret in his heart and wants to spill it all out, is that he wants to tell me to give him the blood essence of Zhu Wu, and that he's not on the same side as the Zhu Wu in Shanghai Pass. Guhan smiled. That's right, that's exactly what I mean. Since Guhan had seen through him, Ying Zheng did not bother to play the game of question and answer anymore. He went straight to the point and said, I'm different from these Yuan Kus. I'm a real native of Earth, and it's the Earth that gave birth to me and raised me. As for the Wu people in Shanghai Pass, they're just fake Wu people who came here from another world. They're just like my clones. How can I treat them as my own people? It's impossible for me to help these Yuan Kus destroy the Earth. However, the blood essence of Zhu Wu in the hands of these Wu people is real, and it can be used by me to help me break through the level of Grand Magus. These silly Yuan Ku's Grand Magi are just my toys. I just need to show them a little bit of my strength as a Grand Magus, and they foolishly think that I'm the same as them. If it weren't for the fact that Chang'e has always been suspicious of me, and caused the other Grand Magi to never tell me where the blood essence of Zhu Wu's is hidden, I wouldn't have to go against my conscience and help them design this escape plan that will cause great casualties to the human race. Everything I've done is because I have no other choice. If I can get my hands on Zhu Wu's blood essence, I'll be able to become a Zhu Wu, a native Zhu Wu who was born and raised on Earth. This is equivalent to Earth gaining the combat power of an Emperor Swordbearer, and it's an Emperor Swordbearer who can live forever and fight for the human race. Isn't this a very good thing for Earth and mankind? Ying Zheng said in a bewitching tone. Although his words sounded bewitching, when Liuan Ling gave it a second thought, she found that what Ying Zheng said did make a lot of sense. If Ying Zheng could really borrow Zhu Wu's blood essence to become Zhu Wu, then with Ying Zheng's immortal ability, he could indeed fight for mankind for a long time. It was equivalent to mankind having an eternal Emperor sword wielder. Even if an Emperor sword wielder was as strong as Kanzu or Zhetian Zhendi, in the end, he would still have to ascend. At most, he would only be able to fight for humans for 40 to 50 years. However, as long as Ying Zheng did not die in the hands of Yuan Ku, he would be able to fight for 100 years, 1,000 years, or even 10,000 years. Humans would never face the situation of lacking Emperor Sword-level sword holders. Thinking about it this way, it was indeed an extremely good thing. Ying Zheng, can you really stand on the side of mankind forever? Guhan was not bewitched by Ying Zheng. Instead, he asked in disdain. Ji Yuhan had indeed pointed out the most important question, and that was this Ying Zheng willing to continue fighting for mankind at all costs? Perhaps during the few years when he became Zhu Wu, he was indeed willing to fight for mankind. However, as time passed, it was hard to say what would happen. Even the purest human, Ming Yuan Zhendi, would eventually betray mankind and fall into the arms of Yuan Ku. It was hard to guarantee that Ying Zheng would not be the next one. I am the human emperor, the peerless first emperor. All humans are my people. It is only natural for me to protect them forever. Is there a problem with that? I'm just like a human father. Of course, I'll love and protect my children selflessly. This is the responsibility of every father. Please don't doubt my dignity as a father, okay? Ying Zheng said with a look of boundless love. It is precisely because you are the peerless first emperor that I suspect that your plan is not as simple as it seems now. Guhan's eyes seemed to see through everything. I believe that when you become Zhu Wu, you will indeed fight for mankind for a period of time. In fact, you will perform better than all the other sword holders. You will perform selflessly and fearlessly. You will even give up your life and sacrifice everything to fight. That's right. Guhan, you understand me the best. This is what I should do. Ying Zheng nodded and said proudly. No, this is not what you should do. This is what you want to do. You want to perform for all humans. You want to establish your supreme prestige among mankind. When you have such prestige, what do you want to do? Especially when you still have eternal life, what do you want to do? Ji Yuhan pursed his lips. You'll want to rebuild your Qin dynasty. You'll want to become the supreme emperor of this world again. You'll even start a war in an attempt to unify the 8 base cities under your command. You might even destroy the possibility of other sword-bearers becoming emperor sword-bearers in order to protect your own power. Only then will no one be able to challenge your position. In the next 20 to 30 years, you may be the greatest savior of mankind. But in the next 200 to 300 years, you will definitely be the greatest disaster for mankind. You will be the culprit that will destroy mankind. Mankind will eventually be destroyed by your desire. How can I give Zhu Wu's blood essence to someone like you? Ying Zheng's words were so powerful that Liuan Ling's eardrums hurt. Upon hearing Ji Yuhan's words, Ying Zheng fell into a moment of speechless silence. After a long while, a wry smile emerged on his face and he said, "I thought you are the one who knows me the best, but little did I expect that you are the one who misunderstands me the most. I love this world. I only want to give it the greatest happiness. I will save mankind from the endless Yuan coup. Why don't you believe in my sincerity? If you are really so great, why did you hide your identity in the 1,000 years after the Great Apocalypse?" Guhan went straight to the point. With your strength as a great wizard, you could have taken the initiative to stand out and help mankind fight at the beginning of the Great Apocalypse. You could have saved mankind during their most difficult time. Do you think I didn't want to? Ying Zheng said painfully. When the Great Apocalypse started, I had reverted to the state of an infant. I could only watch as mankind was slaughtered. I had no power at all. When I finally grew up and regained my strength, mankind already had the fleeting year calendar. Therefore, I decided to protect mankind in the dark and not expose my identity. At the same time, because I only have the strength of a great wizard, which is equivalent to an immortal sword wielder, mankind doesn't have much power with or without me. On the contrary, if I pretended to be Yuan Ku and mixed in with Yuan Ku's camp, I would be able to obtain a lot of information from Yuan Ku. You must not know this, right? Back then, Artoria betrayed the Martyr's Palace because I persuaded her. Then, I helped Ardwolf find a way to remove the filth. That was how Artoria was freed from the filth. Without me, Artoria would still be King Arthur of the Martyr's Palace. I have worked hard and made great contributions. If it wasn't for the sudden appearance of the wizard tribe, which gave me hope of becoming the wizard ancestor, I would have continued to hide in the dark and help the humans gather information. I'm really doing this for the sake of the humans. My heart can be seen by the heavens, the sun, and the moon. With the ancestors of Great Qin as my witness, I can't be more sincere. I didn't expect that he would interfere in Artoria's betrayal. Guhan didn't expect to hear another earth-shattering news from Ying Zheng. Guhan was wondering how Ardwolf, with his mediocre abilities, could find a way to remove the filth. So, it turned out that Ying Zheng was behind it. It seemed that Guhan had to give Ying Zheng credit. Lie. Keep lying. However, Guhan was not moved at all. He continued to ruthlessly expose Ying Zheng's thoughts. If that's what you really think, you could have gone to the headquarters of the Sword Committee when Wu people appeared and told them your identity. Then, you could have shown them the information you provided to mankind over the years as evidence. I believe that as long as the headquarters confirmed that you have no ill intentions, they would have done their best to help you become Zhu Wu. There would have been no need for you to disguise yourself as a sword-bearer and come to Shanhai Pass to obtain the blood essence of Zhu Wu by deceiving them. More importantly, because of your deception, your disguise, and the plans you gave to Wu people, at least thousands more sword-bearers died in Shanhai Pass for no reason. Even a top-notch sword-bearer like Lilith lost her power as a sword-bearer because of you. In your eyes, Ying Zheng, human lives are worthless. How can I believe that you will continue to fight for mankind selflessly? You are just a selfish man. All the emperors in the world are selfish men, and you, Ying Zheng, are the most selfish of them all. I will never believe you. But, if you insist on getting the blood essence of Zhu Wu, it's not impossible. Unexpectedly, Guhan, who had just rejected Ying Zheng with righteous words just a moment ago, changed the topic and said, "Based on the friendship we built in the game, I'm willing to believe you for once. I will report everything that happened today to the Sword Committee headquarters. Then, you have to accept a full investigation by the Sword Committee headquarters. As long as the Sword Committee headquarters agrees to help you become an ancestor of sorcerer, I am willing to give you the blood essence of the ancestor of sorcerer. What do you think?" Ji Yuhan had indeed proposed a more feasible solution. After all, he would throw the blame to the Sword Committee headquarters, and everything that happened in the future would have nothing to do with Ji Yuhan. All right. Ying Zheng nodded without hesitation. I promise you. Phew. That's right. We are all humans, so there's no need to make things so awkward. Liu Ling, who was watching from the side, said with a smile. In her opinion, things had finally come to a good end. Mankind would have an emperor swordbearer forever. Your man is amazing. I've been completely convinced by him. Ying Zheng let out a long sigh of relief. He then opened his arms wide toward Liu Ling and said with a smile, we have a bad attitude too. Let's celebrate. Okay. Liu Ling did not suspect anything. She happily opened her arms and was about to hug Ying Zheng. However, just as they were about to hug each other, a cold and sharp sword light flashed. The pitch-black Juzi sword blocked in front of Liu Ling's chest. At that moment, a huge crack appeared on Ying Zheng's chest, and a bloody hand reached out from it. If it were not for Gu Han's timely block, Liu Ling's chest would have been pierced through by Ying Zheng. Chapter 1042. Ying Zheng, you. Liu Ling stared incredulously at the bloody hand poking out of Ying Zheng's chest. If not for Gu Han's quick reaction, she would have been killed by Ying Zheng. Ying Zheng, how can you be so shameless? Gu Han pushed Ying Zheng's third hand away with his sword. Just for this, I will never hand over Zhu Wu's blood essence to you. Then there's no other way. Let's see who's stronger. Ying Zheng retracted his third hand back into his body, then raised the Big Dipper sword in his hand and said, Gu Han, don't think that your swordsmanship is unparalleled in the world. Even Liu Nian was defeated by me in those years. It's time for you to understand that there's always someone better than you out there. Judging from the way Ying Zheng was holding his sword, it seemed that this fellow was planning to compete with Gu Han in swordsmanship, which was exactly what Gu Han wanted. You can't win by bragging. Let me send you back to Emperor Qin's mausoleum. After that, both Gu Han and Ying Zheng struck their swords at the same time. In an instant, both sides clashed in the air. The battle had entered a white-hot state from the very beginning. Are these two perverts? Liu Ling, who was watching from the side, murmured to herself in disbelief after only watching the battle for less than 20 seconds, which lasted more than 100 moves. Liu Ling could be considered to have received the true teachings of the Liu Nian family. Among all the swordmasters, her swordsmanship was only second to her grandfather, sword spirit Mystic Mist, and the freak Gu Han. Liu Ling was confident that she could suppress any other sword-bearer with just her swordsmanship alone. But when she saw the battle between Gu Han and Ying Zheng, she suddenly realized that she had become a laughable frog at the bottom of a well in just a few months. 6 months ago, she was confident that she could compete with Gu Han in swordsmanship, but now, Liu Ling found that she was like a baby compared to Gu Han. If she were to compete with Gu Han in swordsmanship, she would be defeated by Gu Han in less than 20 moves. This was equivalent to the gap between an adult and a baby. Liu Ling felt that even her grandfather, Fleeting Wooden Fish, was no match for Gu Han's swordsmanship. Perhaps only her father, Fleeting Wooden Fish, could compete with Gu Han. If Gu Han's swordsmanship had reached such a high level, then the fact that Ying Zheng could fight Gu Han on equal footing with Gu Han in less than 20 seconds and more than 100 moves showed that Ying Zheng's swordsmanship was also terrifying. As for the level of swordsmanship between the two, it was not something that could be described with words. Liu Ling felt that the swordsmanship between the two had reached the level of the laws, and the laws were something that could only be understood, not explained. The two of them had exchanged more than 1,000 moves in just 5 minutes. Their speed was so fast that even the engine of a maglev flying car could not catch up to them. When the two of them separated from each other, it was already after 10 minutes and 1,500 moves. Both of them did not seem to be in a good state. Both of them were panting heavily, and it was obvious that they had expended a lot of energy. However, both of them seemed to be in a good mood. It was a kind of joy that could only be produced after a good workout. It's been a long time since I've had such a good fight. Ying Zheng exclaimed loudly. I can't believe you forced me to this point. Good. Good. It's really good. Gu Han nodded. He had never thought that he would be able to use his swordsmanship to his heart's content other than when he was undergoing Kunzu's training. "Guhan, I've really realized that I've underestimated you again and again," Yingzheng exclaimed. Yingzheng praised, "I am a rare genius in the field of swordsmanship, and it took me 3,000 years of painstaking practice to reach the level I have today. But you, a 19-year-old boy, can actually be on par with me. You're just too scary. So scary that I have to find a way to kill you. Otherwise, you'll definitely become a thorn in my side in the future. I've also realized that I've underestimated your shamelessness." Guhan snorted coldly. "You obviously have such a peerless ability, but you haven't done anything for mankind in the past 1,000 years. It's useless to keep you alive in this world. Guhan, don't be too proud of yourself. To tell you the truth, that wasn't my full strength just now. I still have the secret skills of the Wu people that I haven't used, and I still have the Emperor's swordsmanship that I haven't used. If I used all of them, you wouldn't be able to live past today." Yingzheng said disdainfully. "If you didn't put Zhu Wu's blood essence in your dimensional pocket, do you think I'll let you live until now? Then you can give it a try with your full strength." Guhan's attitude was also disdainful, because he also had a trump card that he hadn't used yet, and that was his chaos swordsmanship. After going through Kunzu's special training, Guhan's chaos swordsmanship had once again made a qualitative leap. Guhan really wanted to see who would be the final winner between him and Yingzheng. "Although I really want to kill you now, if I do, I won't be able to get Zhu Wu's blood essence in your dimensional pocket. I'm not that stupid." Yingzheng sheathed his sword. "Looking at the time, you should be here by now. Why don't you hurry up and come out? How long do you want to dawdle?" As soon as Yingzheng's voice faded, the ceiling of the underground palace was violently smashed open, revealing a large hole through which sunlight shone straight in. Immediately after that, a nimble and agile figure leaped into the underground palace and came standing right next to Yingzheng. "Hongyu, why are you here?" When Liuyan Ling and Guhan saw the face of the person who suddenly appeared, Liuyan Ling exclaimed again. It turned out that the person who appeared was none other than the new guardian of the sun, Hongyu. "Damn it. I still missed a step after all my calculations." Guhan's expression changed when he saw Hongyu. It seemed that Guhan had never thought that Hongyu would appear here, and Hongyu's appearance had completely disrupted Guhan's plan. "Ha ha ha. Finally, there's something you didn't expect. This feels great. I'm so happy." When Yingzheng saw the change in Guhan's expression, he immediately burst into laughter. It was no wonder that Yingzheng would be so happy. After all, when all his plans were seen through by Ji Han, he felt ashamed of his own intelligence, and when he suddenly found out that he had a trick that Ji Han did not expect, he felt a great joy that he could not wait for the whole world to celebrate with him. Could it be that Hongyu is also Yingzheng's man? This time, Liuyan Ling's intelligence finally came online, and she figured out Hongyu's true camp. "I should have thought of that." Guhan clenched his fist. "Hongyu is your man in the game, so there's a chance that Hongyu is your man in real life. I was naive enough to think that Hongyu joined the Yaoguang sword faction in the game only because she's your friend. How could this woman be my friend? Does she deserve to be my friend?" Yingzheng said in a sharp voice. "Hongyu, tell them what your relationship with me is." "Hongyu is your majesty's lowliest slave. Hongyu is willing to do anything for your majesty," Hongyu said in an extremely gentle and submissive voice. "Hongyu, kneel before me," Yingzheng ordered again. As soon as he finished speaking, Hongyu knelt before Yingzheng without hesitation. She knelt on both knees, and her forehead touched the ground deeply. It was a posture of complete submission to Yingzheng. "Hongyu, my shoes are dirty. Help me clean them up." Upon hearing Yingzheng's order, Hongyu's body hesitated for less than 0.1 second. Then, she immediately crawled under Yingzheng's feet, stuck out her tongue, and licked Yingzheng's leather shoes. Soon, Yingzheng's leather shoes, which were covered in dust, were shiny with oil. "Hongyu, take off your clothes. Let Brother Guhan have a good look." The order made Hongyu hesitate for 0.5 seconds, but in the end, she still reached out her hand to the opening on her clothes. "Enough." Guhan flung out a stream of sword energy, repelling Hongyu's hand that was about to undo the button. I know what you mean. You're shameless enough to threaten me with the Ju Tian star battle formation. The reason why Ying Zheng asked Hongyu to show herself was very obvious. Ying Zheng had once told Guhan that there was another way to break through the Ju Tian star battle formation, and that was to kill the guardians of the lunar star and the solar star at the same time. Later on, Guhan went through the information that could only be accessed by the guardians of the solar star and the lunar star. What he found was not the guardians themselves, but the two great Ju Tian star banners inside their bodies, which were of vital importance. Ying Zheng and Hongyu only needed to break the great Ju Tian star banners inside their bodies at the same time, and with that, the Ju Tian star battle formation would collapse in an instant. At that point, without the suppression of the Ju Tian star battle formation, the 12 Zhu Wu who were sealed deep under the ground would definitely wake up. At that point of time, the human race would be faced with a crisis that could possibly destroy the entire human race. Even if the human race managed to survive the crisis, the power of the sword-bearers would definitely suffer a great loss, and only God knew what kind of ending the human race would face in the end. The reason why Ying Zheng asked Hongyu to behave obediently like a slave to him was to tell Guhan that with just one word of his order, Hongyu would break the great Ju Tian star banners inside her body. At that point of time, everything would be destroyed. That was the reason why Guhan angrily said that Ying Zheng was shameless. It was you who forced me to do that. Ying Zheng shook his head helplessly. If you didn't force me with the blood essence of the Zhu Wu, I wouldn't want to do something like destroying everything together. After all, if the 12 Zhu Wu managed to break free from the Ju Tian star battle formation, I would have to find a place to hide in and wait for the extinction of the human race. But, you don't have to worry, before I go into hiding, I will take in 1,000 virgin girls. In those years, Shu Fu could create a Fusang with these 500 virgin girls and boys, and I can also create a great Qin with these 1,000 virgin girls. At that point of time, I will be the real ancestor of Huaxia, even more real than that Gongsun Shenyuan. After all, at that point of time, all the human race under the heaven will be my blood. Good heavens, this Ying Zheng is actually planning to create another Huaxia with 1,000 virgin girls? Isn't he afraid that the children he will give birth to will be idiots? Chapter 1043. What do you think? Do you want to change it or not? As long as you give me the blood essence of Zhu Wu, I'll give you the position of Guardian of Lunar Garrison, and your girlfriend the position of Guardian of Sunday. Isn't this fair? Ying Zheng looked at Guhan and asked with a smile on his face, because he knew Guhan would definitely change it, and he would never leave the destruction of the human race alone. Sure enough, Ying Zheng was right. After a long sigh, Guhan nodded his head helplessly. If Guhan changed it, then even if Ying Zheng became Zhu Wu, he would not be able to bring disaster to the human race in a short period of time. On the contrary, he might even be able to help the human race. On the contrary, if Guhan did not change it, then the destruction of the human race would be imminent. Even though Guhan knew that giving Zhu Wu's blood essence to Ying Zheng was a slow-acting poison, he had no choice but to agree to the deal. Otherwise, the human race would be forced to drink a bottle of acute poison. Excellent. Ying Zheng laughed even more happily. He had finally achieved the goal that he had been hoping to achieve for a long time. How are we going to make the deal? But very soon, Ying Zheng thought of another tricky problem, and that was how to make a safe deal between both parties. What Ying Zheng needed was the blood essence of Zhu Wu in Guhan's hands. And what Guhan needed was Ying Zheng to transfer the position of Taiyin Garrison and Sun Garrison to him. So, there was a question of who would come first. Would Guhan give Zhu Wu's blood essence to Ying Zheng first, or would Ying Zheng give Guhan the position of Guardian of Lunar Garrison first? The whole process was full of deception and deception. Neither Guhan nor Ying Zheng was a man of integrity. Whether it was Guhan handing over Zhu Wu's blood essence first, or Ying Zheng handing over the position of Guardian of Lunar Garrison first, if the latter were to shamelessly deny it, the former would not be able to do anything to the latter. Of course, you could say that both parties made a deal at the same time. When Guhan threw out Zhu Wu's blood essence, Yao Guang would also break his great Ju Tian star banner. Wouldn't that be a perfect deal? But there was also a problem in this. If Ying Zheng broke the Great Ju Tian Star's banner and asked Hong Yu to break the Great Ju Tian Star's banner at the same time, Gu Han would suffer a complete defeat. How about this? Ying Zheng put forward an idea. First, you give me 10 drops of Zhu Wu's blood essence, then I'll ask Hong Yu to break her Sun Star banner of Ju Tian Star, and make your girlfriend the guardian of Sun Star. After that, you'll give me the last drop of Zhu Wu's blood essence. What do you think? Honestly speaking, Ying Zheng's idea was not a bad one. At the same time, it took into consideration the interests of both parties, and allowed both parties to have a peace of mind when making the deal. Of course, Ying Zheng would still be at a slight disadvantage, because once Liuyan Ling took over the position of the Guardian of Sunstar, it would not matter whether Ying Zheng broke the Great Ju Tian Star's banner of Lunar Star or not. After all, there would be no problem with the Ju Tian Star formation. At this point, if Gu Han refused to give Ying Zheng the last drop of Zhu Wu's blood essence, Ying Zheng would never be able to get the last drop of Zhu Wu's blood essence, and there was a high possibility that Ying Zheng would never be able to become Zhu Wu. Of course, there was a possibility that the 12 drops of Zhu Wu's blood essence were just a disguise, and Ying Zheng only needed 10 or 11 drops to become the new Zhu Wu. But no matter what, this was indeed the safest and most reasonable way that Ying Zheng could come up with. There's no need to go through so much trouble. With a cold face, Gu Han took out the test tube containing Zhu Wu's blood essence from his dimensional pocket, opened it, and directly let out all the Zhu Wu's blood essence. After that, he used his sword energy to roll up a breeze, blowing all the Zhu Wu's blood essence right in front of Ying Zheng. Gu Han, what are you doing? Upon seeing this, Liuyan Ling panicked. She kept shaking Gu Han's arm and asked, "Are you really going to give him Zhu Wu's blood essence just like that? What if he is lying to us? You are giving it to me just like that." Ying Zheng found it hard to believe as well. He could not control the excitement in his body. Blinking his eyes frequently, he looked at the Zhu Wu's blood essence floating in front of him, and asked Gu Han with a trembling voice. If not for the fact that he was absolutely sure that this was a drop of black blood essence, and was indeed the genuine Zhu Wu's blood essence, he would not believe that Gu Han would give Zhu Wu's blood essence to him so easily. "I believe you. After all, you are the first emperor of a generation, and a monarch never goes back on his word." Gu Han pressed down on Liuyan Ling's arm, which was grabbing onto his arm, and said coldly, "Now, it's time for me to see if the first emperor of a generation is a monarch who never goes back on his word. Of course, I have always been a man of my word." Ying Zheng seemed to be touched. He was not in a hurry to keep the Zhu Wu's blood essence. Instead, he closed his eyes. At the same time, a blue flag was slowly rising above Ying Zheng's head. This flag was none other than the Great Ju Tian Star's star banner of Taiyin Star. Catcher. After the Great Ju Tian Star's star banner was completely raised, Yao Guang grabbed it in his hand and broke it into two without any hesitation. You can go to the Taiyin Star garrison to get the brand new Great Ju Tian Star's star banner of Taiyin Star and inherit the position of the guardian of Taiyin Star. I will ask Hong Yu to break the Great Ju Tian Star's star banner of Taiyin Star tomorrow morning. That way, your girlfriend can inherit the throne of the guardian of Taiyin Star. Ying Zheng said in a very caring manner. "No need. I've brought it with me." Under Ying Zheng's surprised gaze, Gu Han took out a brand new Great Ju Tian Star's star banner from his dimensional pocket, then inserted it into his own Z Palace. After a short period of fusion, the position of the Guardian of Taiyin Star had finally been replaced, and the new Guardian of Taiyin Star was born. At the same time when Gu Han was fusing with the Great Ju Tian Star's star banner, Ying Zheng waved his hand and absorbed all the Zhu Wu's blood essence into his own body. At the moment when the Zhu Wu's blood essence entered his body, Ying Zheng's face flushed, and he coughed out a mouthful of blood. It seemed that absorbing the Zhu Wu's blood essence with his own body was a huge burden for Ying Zheng. At the moment when the Zhu Wu's blood essence entered his body, Ying Zheng was seriously injured. It seemed that Ying Zheng still had a long way to go before he could fully absorb all the Zhu Wu's blood essence. In this way, this important transaction was considered to have ended without mishap. "I understand now. You've actually guessed my true identity, so you've already made up your mind to complete the replacement of the Guardian of Taiyin Star here, am I right?" After the transaction was completed, Ying Zheng looked at the new guardian of Taiyin Star, Guhan, and said with a bitter tone. I was going to kill you, but I didn't expect that I would have to do it in this way. After recovering, Guhan shrugged his shoulders. Good. Not bad. I hope we will not be opponents in the future, but real friends. He burst into a loud laughter, and then Hongyu also forced out the great Ju Tian Star's star banner from her body, then broke it into pieces. However, as Guhan did not have the great Ju Tian Star's star banner with him, it was naturally impossible for Liuyan Ling to take over the position of the Sun's guardian. But it was not a bad thing, as long as the Ju Tian Star battle formation was not destroyed, and Liuyan Ling was not in a hurry to take over the position. Well, it's time for me to go to the last mausoleum. See you later. Ying Zheng nodded at Guhan and was about to leave. Wait. Guhan suddenly stopped, looked at Hongyu, and said something that shocked Liuyan Ling. Hongyu is actually your sword maiden, right? Are you a human or a ghost? I can't believe you even guessed this. How did you figure it out? Ying Zheng was so shocked that his eyeballs nearly popped out from their sockets. He never thought that Ji Yu Han would expose Hongyu's identity so easily. Actually, I already felt that Hongyu was a little strange in the game, but I didn't know why. Until today, when this happened, I finally figured out the whole thing. Unfortunately, it was a little too late. Guhan shook his head helplessly. I don't know if you remember, but there is a rule in the game that a player must never have the same name as a sword maiden. Just like that guy from the Ghost Sword sect named Huang Tujian. He said that he originally wanted to name himself Huang Tujian, but because it was the same name as the sword maiden, Huang Tujian, he could only change it to this ridiculous name. At this point, Guhan paused for a moment. Hongyu's sword maiden is Hongyu, which is obviously a violation of the naming rule. More importantly, just like Yi Fan, I've never seen Hongyu release her sword maiden. Hongyu has always been fighting in the form of a sword master. I didn't understand it at first, but now I understand. Hongyu is the sword maiden, and the sword maiden is Hongyu. That's why Hongyu can exist in the game under the name Hongyu, and that's why Hongyu has always been fighting in the form of a sword master. It's impossible for her to conjure a second sword maiden, Hongyu. That's why Hongyu can't disobey any of your orders. However, what I don't understand is why, as a sword maiden, Hongyu has the ability that only humans can have. How can she fuse with the Ju Tian Star battle formation? Guhan voiced out the question in his heart. Since you've figured it out, I might as well tell you. In fact, this is an accident that even I didn't expect. Ying Zheng hesitated for a moment, but in the end, he still decided to answer Ji Yu Han's question. However, the first sentence that came out of Ying Zheng's mouth shocked Ji Yu Han. I wonder if you've heard of a technique called Sword Maiden Grafting Technique? Sword Maiden Grafting Technique? Guhan repeated the name a few times. Guhan only knew about this technique, and he was the direct user of it. In the game, the King of Yu Go Jian sword, the current Chijian sword, and the Duyu sword were actually all made by Ji Yu Han using the Great Sword Maiden's grafting technique to become Ji Yu Han's sword maidens. Otherwise, Ji Yu Han wouldn't have been able to have 6 sword maidens as a famed sword wielder. However, Guhan had always thought that the sword maiden grafting technique was an original technique of his Ji Yu family. He didn't expect Ying Zheng to know about this technique. This made the situation even more confusing. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.